Chapter 284. After Elder Lu finished speaking, he returned to his original cheerful self. He really was a spirited old man. Ha ha ha, little girl. Sit down and have a cup of tea first. There's no rush. Elder Lu stroked his beard that he had deliberately kept, smiling as he pointed to a high stool for Yun Jian to sit down. Okay. Yun Jian naturally knew that these things could not be explained in a few sentences. She quickly sat down on the high stool as Elder Lu said. Lu Haoze stood obediently at the side like a well-behaved child. He brewed a pot of tea for Yun Jian, poured it into a cup, and handed it to Yun Jian. Thank you, Yun Jian said softly to Lu Haoze with pursed lips. Lu Haoze, however, walked shyly behind Elder Lu. Hey, little girl, since you're that stinky old man's disciple, then ask whatever you want to know. As long as I know, I'll tell you. Elder Lu sat down opposite Yun Jian, stroking his beard as he spoke. Yun Jian could tell from Elder Lu's words that Elder Lu had a great relationship with her previous life's master. She was not in a hurry to ask. Instead, she rubbed the teacup gently with her fingertips, remaining silent for a while. Then, even Elder Lu could not help but marvel at how a little girl like her could be so calm. Yun Jian suddenly raised her head and gave Elder Lu a slight smile. You're also from the Yulong continent. Elder Lu's hand that was stroking his beard froze. He did not expect that this little girl was not asking him a question, but Yun Jian's words were not a question, but an affirmation. You little girl. How did you know? Elder Lu stroked his chest and stood up in surprise. That's none of your business. Yun Jian smiled and stood up with Elder Lu. After a moment of silence she continued. Elder Lu, if I'm not wrong, it's not just you. Everyone in the Lu family is from the Yulong continent. Even Lu Haoze, who was standing at the side, was dumbfounded. Lu Haoze had never heard of the Yulong continent, but he could tell that this non-existent continent was definitely not on Earth. Elder. Lu Haoze couldn't help but ask Elder Lu. His tone was filled with doubt and disbelief. Elder Lu, on the other hand, acted as if he had been seen through. He stopped pretending and muttered, That's right. I, and even the entire Lu family, migrated from the Yulong continent. Elder Lu was silent for 2 seconds before continuing. But now that I think about it, it has been many years since I moved here with the Lu family. This old man and your master have not seen each other for over 20 years. But I can guarantee that if you can't find that old man in this world, he must have returned to Yulong mainland. As for the other matters of the Yulong continent, it's not convenient for me to talk about them. Little girl, if you're fated, go and find out for yourself. The last few sentences were said with a deep sigh. After Elder Lu finished speaking, he stroked his long beard and walked away with a sigh. Yun Jian didn't ask her to stay. She didn't come in vain. At least she knew where her master had gone in her previous life. Yulong mainland. It turned out that she had accidentally entered another world in the ancient tombstone cave. To be honest, Yun Jian heaved a sigh of relief when she found out where her master had gone. But at least she had a direction now. She knew where her master had gone. It was no wonder that she couldn't find her master's whereabouts even after mobilizing all her forces in her previous life. Chapter 285. It was already very late when they returned from Lu Haoze's house. Yun Jian did not go to the military training camp today, so she fell asleep the moment she got home. Nothing special happened in the next few days. 7 days later, the annual New Year's Day performance that the students had been looking forward to officially began. Early in the morning, Chen Xinyi screamed excitedly. Chen Xinyi was participating in the performance at night. Her performance was singing. Chen Xinyi had a good voice and the songs she sang were very pleasant to listen to. However, as usual, the New Year's Day performance was held at night, but Chen Xinyi was already excited and nervous early in the morning. Stop howling. Hurry up and prepare your song. Hee. Zhang Xiaofeng pushed away Chen Xinyi's head that was circling around Yun Jian and leaned over. Master, I've already practiced the chopstick throwing you taught me last time. When are you free? I'll show you. Zhang Xiaofeng said to Yun Jian excitedly. Yun Jian nodded and narrowed her eyes. The New Year's Day performance was held at night, so the students were in class during the day. Because Longmen First High School and First High School were holding the New Year's Day performance together, the venue was Yunyi's school. As Chen Xinyi was participating in the performance, she went to prepare in the afternoon. Because she had to put on makeup and change into her stage costume, she went early. In the evening, Yoon Jian followed the school's organization and walked to First High School with her classmates. At this time, the New Year's Day performance had not started yet. Therefore, the students could take a look around First High School. Yoon Jian went to the dressing room of the students participating in the performance. She went to the dressing room to look for her brother, Yoon-yi. When she entered the dressing room with light steps, she could not help frowning when she scanned the room and did not see her brother, Yoon-yi. Brother was not here? Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Yoon-yi to not be here. After all, it was almost time for the opening of the New Year's literary performance. And Yoon Jian knew that Yoon-yi's program was ranked very high. Jian Jian! Jian Jian! A silhouette dashed into the dressing room in a hurry. Chen Sinny, who was halfway done with her makeup, sprinted in and grabbed Yoon Jian's hand, telling her in a breathless voice, "Yoon Jian, I'm not going to let you go." "Jian Jian, I saw your brother being dragged out by a bunch of gangsters just now. I think it's because of a girl. She said she's going to beat him up. Go take a look." Chen Sinny took a few deep breaths. She was still putting on her makeup when a group of people suddenly rushed in from the door and directly grabbed a boy who was bullying her. Taking a closer look, she realized that the boy was her Jian Jian's brother. Listening to the gangsters' insults, they seemed to have taken him away because of a girl. Chen Sinny was only halfway done with her makeup when she stopped and ran out to look for Yoon Jian. It was only after a round of searching that she sprinted back when she heard that Jian Jian was heading to the dressing room. Those who came to look for trouble on the eve of the New Year's literary performance were definitely up to no good. Yoon Jian's brows scrunched up at that. Chapter 286. Where? Yoon Jian ran out with Chen Sinny. Over there. I saw them go that way. Chen Sinny didn't even have time to catch her breath as she hurriedly led Yoon Jian out. First High School, large field. Because the New Year's Day performance was about to begin, there was almost no one in the field. Even the teachers were busy at the front desk of the New Year's Day performance, so it became a good place to fight. At the same time, Yoon-yi was being pinned down by a group of gangsters who outnumbered him. Yoon-yi's handsome face didn't have a trace of fear. A blonde with dyed blonde hair who stood in front of Yoon-yi was pointing at his nose and scolding him. "Hey! Do you know who I am? How dare you fight with me over a woman? Chen Yubing is the woman I like. How dare you fight with me over her?" The blonde-haired guy cursed fiercely. His saliva almost sprayed onto Yoon-yi's handsome face. Heh! Yoon-yi only sneered and was too lazy to explain. He fought with the blonde-haired guy over Chen Yubing? Are you kidding me? All right, you're still laughing. The blonde-haired guy's small eyes narrowed into slits. He clenched his fist and was about to hit Yoon-yi. Don't. Brother Huang, stop. At this moment, a soft and delicate voice cut in from the gap. Chen Yubing was seen swaying her long hair. She frowned and ran over with a trace of anxiety on her face. Brother Huang, don't hit Yoon-yi Sr. Don't fight for me. Don't. Chen Yubing revealed a scared and worried expression. Chen Yubing's words made it seem like she really had something to do with Yoon-yi. When the blonde-haired guy heard this, he became even angrier. He looked at Chen Yubing and said to her in a gentle tone, "Bing Bing, just watch. I'll let this guy know the price of fighting with me over you. This is a contest between us men." Chen Yubing's words earlier had completely reversed the black and white facts. He even made the blonde think that Chen Yubing was innocent and that Yoon-yi was the one who wanted to snatch Chen Yubing away from him. With that, the blonde raised his leg and kicked at Yoon-yi's abdomen, who was being held down by his brothers. Just as the yellow-haired man lifted his leg to kick Yoon-yi, a fist-sized rock flew towards the yellow-haired man's raised leg. Coincidentally, at the same time, the rock smashed into the yellow-haired man's acupoint at an astonishing speed. Roar! A heart-wrenching pain came from his leg. The yellow-haired man retracted his leg that was about to kick out. He was in so much pain that he knelt on the ground. On the other side, Yoon Jian and Chen Sinny, who had thrown the large stone, had already walked over. "You want to hit my brother? Have you asked for my permission?" Yoon Jian let out a breath, and a cold and sharp gaze swept through the entire audience. Xiao Jian. When Yoon-yi saw his younger sister, he was reminded of his sister's skills and flashed a radiant smile. F*CKU, how dare you throw a rock at me? Little girl, you've got guts. Do you know who I am? The yellow-haired man wailed as he sat on the ground. Before the yellow-haired man could finish his shriek, his head was hit by a pair of broken shoes. In the blink of an eye, Yun Jian had taken down the yellow-haired man's brothers. She even kicked one of the men's shoes away, hitting the man's face directly. Then, Yun Jian's casual warning rang. "I don't know who you are, but remember, if there's a next time, I'll stab this knife in my hand into your heart." As she spoke, Yun Jian was already toying with a butterfly knife that had appeared out of nowhere like magic. King dare? The yellow-haired man felt like his dignity as a man was being trampled on after being hit by a pair of smelly shoes and being threatened, so he hollered loudly. "Let's see if I dare to." Yun Jian raised her voice and flung the butterfly knife in her hand out right after she said that. The yellow-haired man and his men shuddered, because they saw the butterfly knife that had been thrown out by Yun Jian had already stabbed into Chen Yubing's braids after she spoke. It was so close that the butterfly knife would not have pierced Chen Yubing's hair but her head instead. Chapter 287. Chen Yubing, who was wearing a luxurious hairstyle meant for performing on stage, immediately felt the butterfly knife flying towards her in fright. After that, Chen Yubing could even feel the butterfly knife stabbing into her hair. She shrieked in fear. Scared. Yun Jian shifted her gaze to Chen Yubing. Yun Jian then walked over slowly and pulled her butterfly knife from Chen Yubing's head with a fake smile. Looking at Chen Yubing, Yun Jian lost her patience and told Chen Yubing directly, "My brother doesn't like you. You'd better give up now. I'll say this first. Otherwise, I'll blow your head off if there's a next time." When Yun Jian said the last sentence, she flung the butterfly knife in her hand. Chen Yubing, the blonde, and the rest paled in fright. "Senior Yun Yi, is this true?" Chen Yubing had always been confident. She did not believe Yun Jian's words. She was so outstanding. Which guy would not like her? Yun Yi did not like her? What Xiao Jian said is what I mean. Yun Yi continued and patted his suit in an attempt to dust it off. He had changed into a decent suit for his performance on stage today. Yun Yi looked like a gentleman who had walked out of a fairy tale, handsome and gentle. Chen Yubing slumped to the floor like a puddle of mud after hearing Yun Yi's words. She clenched her fists, her eyes brimming with resentment. Why did that shameless woman, Yun Jian, do this? It must be her. Yun Jian must have forced her brother to say that he did not like her. Chen Yubing did not believe that any man could escape from her when she was so outstanding. She would not rest until she achieved her goal. Yun Yi could be considered to have escaped death today. If Yun Jian had not made it in time, he would not have been able to avoid a fierce battle with the blonde and his gang. This way, his clothes would definitely get dirty. And the New Year's Day arts performance was about to begin. If Yun Jian did not rush over, perhaps Yun Yi would be held back and would not be able to make it in time for the performance. At this time, Yun Yi was ready to go on stage, while Chen Xinyi ran back to the dressing room to touch up the rest of her makeup. Yun Jian entered the venue in order and sat with a group of students who were watching the New Year's Day performance. The first program was Yun Yi's. Yun Yi played the guitar very well, and she played it very well. At the end of the song, she won a round of applause. By the time Chen Xinyi went on stage, the program was already halfway through. In fact, there were only a few kinds of performances on New Year's Day. Singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, acting in plays, and so on. Not long after Chen Xinyi finished her song and got off the stage after winning the applause, a teacher ran in from outside and picked up the loudspeaker in a panic. The teacher held the microphone and used a frightened tone to shout to the entire school. "Students, quick! Evacuate the scene!" A group of criminals appeared in a factory not far from the school, and they even planted a time bomb there. It's said to be the latest type of bomb, and it's very powerful. If the bomb explodes, this place will be razed to the ground. Chapter 288. The teacher hollered. Due to the urgency of the situation, he did not even have the time to catch his breath. In spite of it, the teacher was quite considerate. If he had met someone who only cared about himself, he would probably have run away the moment he learned of the danger. He would not have risked his life to come here and inform the students to evacuate. What? There's a bomb buried nearby? Are we going to die? Sob, I don't want to die. Run. Just as the teacher was done, the students present became agitated. There was only one expression on everyone's face: fear, panic, and terror. For a moment, the scene was extremely chaotic. Everyone ran towards the exit. Students, don't be agitated. Don't panic. Please leave in an orderly manner. Faced with such a sudden situation, there were still teachers who stood up and pretended to be calm to host the event. Although the New Year's Day performance had yet to end, who would have the time to pay attention to this when their lives were threatened? Although there were teachers helping the students to evacuate in an orderly manner, there were still some who were so scared that they could not even move their legs. One such example was Chen Yubing, who had just returned. Chen Yubing was so scared that she could not even move her legs. In the past, she would definitely pester Yun Yi whenever something like this happened. However, when Chen Yubing turned her gaze to Yun Yi out of habit, she saw that Yun Jian had already gone to Yun Yi's side before her. Yun Jian was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, she went to her elder brother, Yun Yi, and told him, "Gu, you go first." With that, Yun Jian turned to walk to the factory where the time bomb was buried. Yun Yi's brows knitted tightly as he grabbed his sister's arm and questioned, "Xiao Jian, what are you going to do?" "Gu, don't bother. Don't worry about it. You go first. There's only 10 minutes left before the time bomb explodes. If we don't deactivate the device after that, this place will be razed to the ground," Yun Jian told Yun Yi with a look up. "What about you?" Yun Yi knew that there was a time bomb in the factory, but his sister still went there. Naturally, he couldn't just stand by and watch. He raised his voice and shouted. Just as Yun Jian was about to speak again, Zhang Xiaofeng's loud shout came from the side. "Master, why haven't you left yet? Let's go." At such a dangerous moment, all the students were busy running for their lives. Everyone wanted to leave as soon as possible. Yun Jian turned her head and saw Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two looking at her anxiously. She would be lying if she said she wasn't touched. However, at least Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Xinyi, and Ling Chen were not in a hurry to escape with the crowd at such a dangerous moment. Instead, they ran back to ask her to escape with them. "You guys go first," Yun Jian repeated. She didn't leave because Gu Junjian had already sent a text message to all the Special Forces members about the time bomb in the factory. There were only 10 minutes left before the time bomb would detonate. Coincidentally, the time bomb in the factory was a new type of bomb invented by Kosha mercenaries, the AK-4. Other than the higher-ups of Kosha mercenaries, the bomb disposal experts here probably had no idea how to deactivate this new type of bomb. Initially, Yun Jian could ignore it. Although she was now an official member of the Special Forces, she could ignore such matters to a certain extent. However, why was the Kosha mercenaries' AK-4 time bomb here? Chapter 289. "I'll be fine, I promise," Yun Jian promised when she saw that Yun Yi and the others were still waiting for her to leave with them. She then grinned, baring her pearly white teeth. "I'm just going to take a look. I'm not stupid. Of course I won't do something like throwing my life away." She said that to reassure Yun Yi and the others. But Xiao Jian, Yun Yi was still worried. His younger sister was skilled, but it did not mean that she could run faster than a bomb. "Gu, when have I ever lied to you? Hurry and leave first. You'll be safe as long as you're 1,000 meters away from here. The bomb can only affect an area of 2 kilometers at most," Yun Jian said again. Hearing his younger sister's promise, Yun Yi finally let go of Yun Jian's arm. He could only clench his fists as his knuckles cracked. "Okay, let's go. Xiao Jian, you must come back safely," Yun Yi told Yun Jian through clenched teeth, his tone brimming with concern. I understand, brother," Yun Jian replied and turned to run toward the factory. Yun Yi clenched his fists. For the first time, he felt his helplessness. Everything that happened in the past, including him being caught by the blonde and his gang just now, it was his younger sister who stood up and took care of it. She protected him. As her brother, he could only stand behind her. Even just now, when he watched Yun Jian walk toward the factory that could detonate the time bomb at any time, he was powerless. It was not that he did not follow because he was afraid of death, but he was afraid of being Yun Jian's burden. For the first time, Yun Yi had the thought of becoming stronger. Yun Jian's pace quickened. If there were still pedestrians on the street, they would feel a gust of wind brushing past them. The factory was just opposite DE High School, less than 10 meters away. At this time, a security line had been set up near the factory, and the nearby residents had also been evacuated. Yun Jian sprinted over but was stopped by a police officer before he could cross the security line. "Young lady, it's dangerous here." The criminals had installed a time bomb inside. "Get out of here." The police officer standing outside the guard line shouted at her. Before the bomb disposal experts made any sound, the duty of these police officers was to guard this place and prevent anyone from approaching. Of course, if even the bomb disposal experts couldn't do anything in the end, then as the last batch to evacuate, they would retreat to a safe area in the shortest time possible. "Let me in if you don't want to get blown up." Yun Jian ignored the police officer's shouts. She frowned and was about to step into the cordoned-off area. "Stop, stop. This is really not a place where a little girl like you can enter. The bomb disposal experts inside are carrying out the final rescue. Little girl, don't delay the experts' thoughts because of your willful behavior. Can you bear the consequences of this?" When the police officer saw that Yun Jian wanted to force her way in, he stood up to stop her. There was a hint of impatience in his tone. This time, Yun Jian didn't continue to waste time with the police officer. She stood on the spot and somersaulted over the police officer's head. She even crossed the security line. After landing, she ran into the factory under the police officer's shocked gaze. The police officer didn't even have time to stop her. Inside the factory, a cylindrical time bomb was installed in the center of the factory. The stopwatch on the bomb was counting down at the speed of light. This time bomb was surrounded by several bomb disposal experts. At this time, the bomb disposal experts' foreheads were covered in cold sweat. The internal structure of the time bomb was much more complicated than they had imagined. They had never seen such a bomb before. Just as the bomb disposal experts were about to give up on contacting the device, and let the last batch of people make the final preparations and retreat out of the bomb's range. Chapter 290. Such a confident, tender, and beautiful young girl's voice was heard. All the bomb disposal experts, including the police and special forces who were waiting for the bomb disposal experts' results, all looked towards the door. They saw a 15 or 16-year-old girl with fair skin, beautiful features, and a hint of playfulness and beauty appear in everyone's eyes. It had to be said that Yun Jian's appearance was indeed shocking. Even if she was placed in a group of beauties, she would still be easily distinguishable. Where did this little girl come from? Hurry up and chase her out. Where is this place and what's the situation? How dare they let a troublemaker in here? The experts need to think calmly before they can properly deactivate the device. Hurry up and chase this little girl out. Standing at the very front, a special police officer with a face full of stubble, who wasn't tall but was wearing a police uniform, pointed at Yun Jian and shouted. Without a doubt, this special police officer was the superior of the surrounding police and special forces. Of course, the words that Yun Jian just said, coupled with her age, would only make the people present think that she was here to cause trouble. This wasn't something that couldn't be understood. Yun Jian ignored the special police officer's call and walked straight towards the time bomb. What is she doing? Hurry up and catch her. Don't let this little girl touch the bomb. This bomb is very powerful. If it accidentally explodes, all of us will die. The special police officer with a face full of stubble saw Yun Jian walking towards the bomb and he quickly shouted in fear. The power of this bomb was very strong. The power of the gunpowder inside was different from normal bombs. Once this bomb detonated, it would definitely affect everything within a 1-kilometer radius and cause a lot of damage. It's going to be too late. Yun Jian saw the countdown timer on the time bomb and suddenly said. The group of special police officers who were ordered to surround Yun Jian and try to drag Yun Jian out of here all stopped in their tracks. What was this girl talking about? The bomb will detonate in 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Do you think that just a few of you who have never touched the latest AK-4 bomb can defuse it? Then you're underestimating its power too much. Also, once this bomb explodes, it will cause huge damage within 2 kilometers. Which one of you thinks you can run 2 kilometers in the last 5 minutes? Yun Jian's words rang an alarm bell in everyone's head. It was too late to retreat now. At this moment, the experts surrounding the time bomb broke out in cold sweat. It wasn't as if they didn't know that it would be difficult for them to defuse the bomb with their abilities. But who were they? An expert. It was precisely this little bit of vanity that caused them to delay again and again. They wanted to defuse the bomb, so they didn't announce that they couldn't defuse the bomb and told everyone to retreat. Especially now that a little girl had appeared and said in front of everyone that they couldn't defuse the bomb. The bomb disposal experts were instantly enraged. One of the bomb disposal experts held his breath and roared at Yunjian. Little girl, if you can dismantle it, then do it. These words were exactly what Yunjian wanted. She lifted her feet and walked over lightly. No. We are experts. Something that even we can't do. How can a little girl like her do it? Let's hurry up and retreat. One of the bomb disposal experts continued to shout. However, before this person finished shouting, Yunjian had already arrived in front of the time bomb. This AK-4 time bomb was developed by one of the leaders of the Kosha mercenaries, Tiger Leopard. Tiger Leopard was her other expert besides Snake. Lizard. After this AK-4 time bomb was developed, no bomb disposal experts were able to defuse it. However, how could she not know what Tiger Leopard had developed? Who would know that this AK-4 time bomb was hailed as the most difficult to defuse and the newest model? She, Yunjian, had easily deactivated the device within 10 seconds of the countdown. Chapter 291. If you don't want to die, then get out of my way. Yunjian's eyes suddenly sharpened. She raised her voice and shouted. That pair of deep eyes seemed to have the power to shock people. The experts who stopped Yunjian from defusing the bomb were stunned. No one would have thought that such an innocent little girl would suddenly shout in protest. There's no time left. If you continue to delay, then fine, we might as well die now. Yunjian suddenly stretched out her hand and a butterfly knife appeared between her fair and slender fingers. As she spoke, she was about to use the knife to touch the time bomb that was still in the countdown. Everyone present raised their voices. No one thought that Yunjian would make such a move. She actually dared to threaten them. One must know that time bombs were the most difficult to defuse. If they were careless, it was very likely that it would explode in advance. No. Stop. Stop. We agree. Facing Yunjian's close threat, even the experts who refused and mocked Yunjian for being a little girl couldn't help but shout out. There was no one present who wasn't afraid of death. Everyone was afraid of death. But in the face of immediate death or putting their lives in the hands of a little girl who might still have hope, everyone wisely chose the latter. Moreover, there was no better way now. A group of bomb defusing experts who cared about their reputation had already delayed the final evacuation time for the sake of their so-called reputation. When Yunjian heard this, she casually put away the butterfly knife and then walked to the time bomb. The countdown timer on the time bomb was still rapidly changing. Now it showed, in other words, there were only 3 minutes left before the bomb would explode. To her, 3 minutes was enough for her to sit down and drink a cup of water to moisten her throat. It was enough time to defuse the time bomb. Because this AK-4 time bomb was from her Kosha mercenaries. If she wasn't familiar with it, who else would defuse it? However, when Yunjian reached out to defuse the bomb, everyone's hearts tightened fiercely. However, the girl's petite body leaned forward. She reached out and deftly removed the detonator with her fingers. At this moment, exposed in front of everyone were several red, yellow, and blue detonator wires. All bomb disposal experts knew how to remove the detonator that Yunjian had done earlier. However, the next step was the hardest to choose in the process of defusing the bomb. There were so many red, yellow, and blue detonators mixed together. Choosing the right one to cut was like winning the lottery. If he didn't cut it, the bomb wouldn't be deactivated. If he had to cut it, which one should he cut? The reason why the bomb disposal experts didn't do anything was because they didn't know what the internal detonator of the AK-4 time bomb was like. If he reached out and cut the wrong time, the time bomb would automatically explode. If he cut it on the spot, it would cause a direct explosion due to the short circuit of the detonator. Therefore, this was a very difficult choice. Success or failure, whether or not this time bomb could be removed, all depended on this cut. As everyone held their breaths, they saw that Yunjian had already picked up a pair of scissors. She hooked the yellow detonator wire from the innermost part and reached out to cut it. Wait! That wire is definitely not the correct one. One of the bomb disposal experts couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up to stop Yunjian. We've already confirmed that this yellow wire is definitely not the correct one. This bomb disposal expert explained to Yunjian with what he thought was a very unique opinion. Then he continued to speak. After all, you're not a real bomb disposal expert. We've defused bombs for so many years, so naturally, we have more experience than you. So, of course, you have to listen to our opinions. This bomb disposal expert didn't finish speaking. Yunjian smiled and looked at him. Is that so? The next second, she moved the scissors, and the scissors happened to be on the yellow wire. The moment she cut it, the yellow wire broke. You want to get us killed. The face of the bomb disposal expert who had lectured Yun Jian instantly darkened. Everyone's expression was filled with fear. According to the bomb disposal expert, Yun Jian had cut it wrongly. Chapter 292. Oh my God! We're done for. The moment the bomb countdown timer sounded, some of the people present had already covered their heads and laid on the ground. Everyone was cursing Yun Jian. She was just a little kid. What was she doing here? Everyone here was going to be buried here because of her. At this time, other than Yun Jian, who was standing still with her arms crossed, everyone around her, including the experts, was lying on the ground, trying to minimize the damage. The last 10 seconds of the countdown timer ended. The people lying on the ground with their hands on their heads remained in this position for a full 10 seconds. At this time, the group of people who were lying on the ground miserably thought that the bomb was going to explode suddenly heard the girl's melodious voice. Lying on the ground, is it fun? Everyone's nerves twitched violently. Nothing happened? They didn't die? The bomb didn't explode? This meant that the time bomb had really been defused. The group of people who stood up in a daze were instantly dumbfounded. Everyone couldn't help but gasp in their hearts. She had cut the yellow wire correctly. This also meant that if Yun Jian hadn't appeared just now, all of them would have been buried here because of the expert's dictatorial decision. When everyone came to their senses, they took a deep breath and came back to their senses with lingering fear. Only then did they feel embarrassed. Especially the expert who had lectured Yun Jian just now. His old face was flushed red. Little girl, thank you so much just now. If it weren't for you, we would have. A special police officer who had been contemptuous of Yun Jian just now stood up. He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and apologized to Yun Jian. Before he could finish his sentence, Yun Jian interrupted him. No need. With that, Yun Jian frowned slightly and walked out. The people present wanted to say something, but when they thought of their actions just now, they didn't have the face to say anything. Everyone's faces were red as they watched Yun Jian leave with extremely embarrassed eyes. After Yun Jian ran out of the factory, her eyes narrowed fiercely. She raised her eyebrows slightly and ran in a direction. The person who set up the Kosha mercenaries' exclusive AK-4 time bomb must not have gone far. The message she received from Gu Junjian confirmed this point. Now, Gu Junjian was leading the army's special forces to surround the person who set the time bomb. They were currently in the direction Yun Jian ran in. She ran in the direction she had judged. After running for about 3 to 4 kilometers, she soon saw a group of fully armed special forces soldiers surrounding a residential house in 4 directions. A group of neighbors who were watching the show stood around, but these ordinary people who were far away from the scene. These sarcastic people were afraid, but they couldn't help but be curious as they stood there looking at the scene. Yun Jian heard a lot of gossips when she passed by. Hey, did you guys know that a family in the residential building in front of us has been taken hostage by a bad guy? Did you see that? Even the special forces soldiers. That's why they surrounded the residential building. I heard that the person is very powerful. He even set up a time bomb not far from here on Huta Road. But now that the bomb disposal experts have gone over, the bomb must have been defused. Someone seemed to have seen the whole process with his own eyes as he bragged exaggeratedly. It was as if he was a witness to everything. Are you serious? Something like this can happen here? What should the family who was held hostage do? Someone shouted in panic. Chapter 293. It wasn't just the gossipy women in the village who liked to gossip when they got together. Even the rich women in the city could gossip when they got together. When Yun Jian walked past the 2 women, she couldn't help but sneer in her heart. Then, she walked towards the residential building that was surrounded by people. Because the people watching the show were standing far away, Yun Jian became very conspicuous when she walked away from them and walked towards the empty area where no one dared to go. Look, that little girl is actually going that way. Didn't you see the special forces lying in ambush all around? There are still bad people in that residential building. This little girl is too daring. The woman who was the most talkative couldn't help but brag in front of the crowd. Because of this woman's brag, the crowd became restless again. But no one stood out to stop Yun Jian and said, "Little girl, it's dangerous, Come back quickly. Little girl, it's too dangerous here. Go back quickly. A Special Forces soldier from far away saw Yun Jian running over and thought that she didn't know the situation there. He waved at Yun Jian enthusiastically and stopped her from going any further. Yun Jian was already close to the residential building. Oh my God. This little girl doesn't know what's good for her. The Special Forces told her not to go over, but she still went over. Humph, if she doesn't believe the police, she won't even know how she died later. The woman from earlier started to evaluate from an outsider's point of view. That's right, that's right. The group of people around them echoed. That woman hid in the crowd. She suddenly felt like an omniscient god who could explain everything to the people around her who were too stupid to understand the situation. Let her pass. At this moment, a Special Forces soldier ran over like a gust of wind. This Special Forces soldier was the one who apologized to Yun Jian in the factory not long ago. When he saw Yun Jian leave, he felt that he had to apologize. After all, she saved all of their lives, so he chased after her. But who knew that Yun Jian would run so fast? He almost ran out of breath. Only then did he catch up with her. I'm Zhang Weigua, a member of the Flying Tiger Special Police Force. The time bomb has been successfully removed, and it was this young lady who removed it. So let her go. Special Forces Zhang Weigua shouted at the Special Forces soldiers as he ran. Zhang Weigua's words were meant to help Yun Jian and help her get past the Special Forces. However, what he didn't know was that his words made everyone present dumbfounded. What the hell? The bomb was actually defused by this little girl? What about the bomb disposal experts? A young girl deactivated the time bomb. Is this realistic? Not to mention the ordinary people. Even the Special Forces were completely dumbfounded. Yun Jian was already standing in front of the residential building. She didn't seem to care about the shocked gazes around her. Instead, she stood in front of the Special Forces soldier who had kindly stopped her and asked him, "Do you have the grappling hook?" After knowing that Yun Jian was the one who removed the bomb, the Special Forces soldier was dumbfounded. He didn't react to Yun Jian's question at all and just replied in confusion, "Yes." As he spoke, he took it out from his backpack. Yun Jian took the grappling hook and nimbly walked towards the residential building. Everyone knew that the family that was held hostage was on the 6th floor. Looking at Yun Jian's actions, was she going to use the grappling hook to climb up? Could she climb up? That was the 6th floor. Without any safety measures, how could she climb up with just a grappling hook? Chapter 294. While everyone was still in shock, they saw Yun Jian fling her flying claws and leaping onto the wall. Then, she used the power of the flying claws to hook onto the floor. Her petite and agile figure followed closely and hung in the air. It was as if she had a pair of eyes under her feet. She stepped on the uneven spots of the residential building agilely. After a while, everyone only saw a flash before their eyes. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Yun Jian had already climbed onto the wall of the residential building and arrived at the window on the 6th floor. The sight of Yun Jian standing by the window without any protection sent shivers down the spines of idlers who were standing afar. What would he do if he accidentally fell? As for the Special Forces below, they were glaring at Yun Jian who was above them. God knows how many ways they had thought of sneaking into the residential building to rescue the hostage. It wasn't that no one had thought of using the flying claws to climb up to the 6th floor from the 1st floor. But no one dared to do it. Because no matter how good their physical fitness was, no one could climb up to the 6th floor using only the flying claws. Unless they had more weapons and equipment. The Special Forces that had sneaked in by other means had yet to return. This result implied that the Special Forces that had sneaked up were most likely caught by the enemy. At this moment, Yun Jian had already flipped over and snuck into the window on the 6th floor that she had opened. She went up. She really went up. That young lady really snuck in. The crowd exclaimed. At this moment, the Special Forces surrounding the residential building began to move. After Yun Jian had snuck into the window on the 6th floor, a team of Special Forces ran up the stairs quietly all the way to the 6th floor. At this moment, Yun Jian, who had flipped over the window on the 6th floor, reassessed her surroundings. She saw a bed with a huge wedding photo hanging at the head of the bed. It must be the head of the household. It was obvious that this was the bedroom. The person who had kidnapped this family and planted the Kosha mercenaries' unique AK-4 time bomb in the factory was in the living room outside the bedroom. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Her footsteps were light and graceful, and she did not make a single sound. She came to the door of the bedroom, held the doorknob with her right hand, and flipped her left hand. She was ready to use a knife in case of an emergency. Yun Jian opened the door without making a sound. As soon as she opened the door, she took 2 steps forward. The sound of Yun Jian opening the door startled the criminals and hostages in the living room. Yun Jian seemed to have found the right position. The blade in her hand flew out at the same time. TSK TSK TSK. The sound of the blade piercing into the skin was bone-chilling. Before Yun Jian could see the appearance of the criminal, she had already found his position and launched the flying knife. And that criminal's skills were not weak either. The criminal rolled away at lightning speed, dodging Yun Jian's flying daggers, but he still suffered some injuries. It was only then that Yun Jian realized the situation. The criminal was also sizing up the little girl who could sneak in without him noticing. Yun Jian realized that there were a few hostages tied up by the criminal. A man and a woman should be the owners of this unit, while a few men dressed like special forces were tied up beside them. Their mouths were covered with black tape. There was no doubt that the men dressed as special forces were sent by the underlings to investigate the situation. In the end, they did not expect to be caught by the criminals and tied up as well. What surprised Yun Jian was not this, but the fact that the criminal was a member of the Kosha mercenaries. He was even a higher-up in the mercenary group. In spite of it, this person was Yun Jian's enemy. This person's codename was Hound, the subordinate of the previous boss of the Kosha mercenaries. He currently occupied a position in the Kosha mercenaries. There must be a reason why this person would come to Longmen City. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, her gaze dimming. Then she narrowed her eyes again, a glint flashing across her eyes. No matter what the reason was, he had set off Kosha mercenaries' unique bombs outside and almost caused a riot. He had violated the Kosha mercenaries' rule. No one was allowed to cause trouble in the name of Kosha mercenaries. It was obvious that Hound had violated this rule. Therefore she, Yun Jian, was going to clean house today. Chapter 295. Jia. Hound, who had been grazed by Yun Jian's flying dagger, squinted his eyes at Yun Jian. At the same time, he let out a sinister laugh. Just this laugh alone was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Among everyone present, other than Yun Jian, the tied-up man and woman, as well as the Special Forces soldiers who had infiltrated and were caught, had their mouths covered with black tape. Hound was considered the second in command of the Kosha mercenaries. For him to be able to sit in the upper echelon of the Kosha mercenaries, his identity and status were naturally not weak. Yun Jian's red lips curled up as she looked at Hound. The two of them looked at each other, neither making the first move. Yun Jian did not make the first move because she knew that Hound was not weak. If she still had her physique from her previous life, she would naturally be able to defeat Hound in seconds. However, it was unrealistic for her to kill Hound in seconds now. Although Hound was not ranked on the international assassin ranking, compared to Wolfblade, who had been killed by Yun Jian in seconds, Hound was many times more powerful than Wolfblade. Just as Yun Jian and Hound were looking at each other to see through each other's abilities, the Special Forces soldiers who were tied up on the ground and had their mouths covered with black tape widened their eyes. When they had infiltrated this place, they had fought with Hound. Naturally, they knew how terrifying Hound's abilities were. However, just now when Yun Jian had infiltrated the place, the flying dagger she had thrown could graze Hound. This meant that this little girl's abilities were definitely not ordinary. Even when compared to the sturdy Hound in front of him, he was not inferior at all. Of course, these Special Forces soldiers did not know that if Yun Jian recovered her physique from her previous life, Hound's skills would be like trash. He would be killed in seconds. Before a battle between experts, it was a test of mental fortitude. Yun Jian's mental fortitude had always been very good. She stood on the spot and looked at Hound as if she was ready to fight at any time. She slightly curled the corners of her lips and maintained this posture. In the end, it was the Hound who couldn't help but speak first. He smiled sinisterly, and the scar on his face was very frightening. "You're not with the police," Hound said with certainty. At the same time, he looked at Yun Jian with an evil grin. After that, Hound paused for a moment, then laughed arrogantly. The capabilities of this group of Special Forces are simply too weak. This was mockery and contempt. As soon as Hound finished speaking, The Special Forces soldiers who were tied up on the ground and had their mouths covered started making muffled sounds. However, this was only enough to make them roll on the ground a few times. Hound's words were meant to distract Yun Jian. If Yun Jian was an ordinary person, she would have already fallen into the trap. Unfortunately, she wasn't. Ha! Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. However, just as Yun Jian finished sneering, the door of this unit was pushed in from the outside. Then, a large group of Special Forces soldiers who were waiting downstairs rushed in. Even the Special Forces soldier who kindly told Yun Jian not to come over was among this group of people. They obviously saw that the time was ripe, so they rushed in to capture the hostage. Tsk tisk. The group of people quickly surrounded Hound. However, Hound was not afraid at all. He then sneered at the Special Forces soldiers and said bluntly, "You Special Forces soldiers from Country Z are just so... Haha, in the end, you still have to rely on a little girl to rush in here." Such provocative words infuriated the group of Special Forces soldiers even more. F***ck your mother. Someone from the Special Forces immediately cursed at Hound in a low voice. Yun Jian lowered her eyes. She raised her head slightly. That half-smile on her small face revealed a hint of viciousness. She looked at Hound and said directly, "Using the name of kosher mercenaries to cause trouble everywhere. Hound, don't you know the rules of the organization?" Just as Hound gained the upper hand, Yun Jian's sudden voice made everyone's eyelids twitch. Chapter 296. This little girl actually knew his code name. And she even knew the rules of the kosher mercenaries. Hound was stunned for a moment. As for the other Special Forces soldiers, they were all stunned. They were stunned, but not because of what Yun Jian said. It was because what Yun Jian said just now was not in Chinese. She spoke to Hound in Hindi. This group of Special Forces soldiers did not understand Hindi, but they were stunned because Yun Jian, a young girl, actually knew how to speak another country's language. And judging from her accent, she seemed to be speaking Hindi. After Hound recovered from his shock, he suddenly put away his ferocious expression and his face became serious. He looked at Yun Jian with a murderous look in his eyes. He asked again, "Who are you? You don't deserve to know who I am." Yun Jian replied in Chinese this time, and her arrogant words shocked Hound and the other Special Forces soldiers again. Although Hound was a high-ranking member of the kosher mercenaries, his position was not the highest. He could occupy a position in the kosher mercenaries, but he could not become the eagle of the generation. At least, even if Yun Jian killed him today, the kosher mercenaries would not be affected at all. Damn it! Hound was not a person who acted rashly, but he was a person who could not stand provocation. This could be seen from the fact that he could not hold back and spoke first when he met Yun Jian's eyes just now. Yun Jian's arrogant words just now infuriated Hound even more. Yun Jian's expression did not change at all, but no one noticed that her lips were slightly curled. Hound's weakness was that he looked down on the weak. Moreover, he could not keep his cool and was easily provoked into anger. As expected, Yun Jian's words to Hound in Hindi had already made Hound restless. Hound kept guessing Yun Jian's identity in his heart. However, the contemptuous words just now had completely ignited Hound's anger. "I don't deserve to know? You're courting death." Hound let out a low growl. After saying that, he raised his hand and clenched his fist. His fist was tight, and his huge and powerful fist made people tremble in fear. He clenched his fist and swung it at Yun Jian. "Be careful." Seeing this, the group of Special Forces soldiers couldn't help but gasp and shout at Yun Jian. Yun Jian, on the other hand, stood upright in the same spot. Her long hair fluttered in the windless room due to the force of Hound's punch. Under the watchful eyes of the owners of the house, the man and woman, as well as all the Special Forces soldiers, Yun Jian spread out her arms. She leaned back and bent down to dodge Hound's punch from the side. Yun Jian's dodging was already dazzling to the eyes. Her speed was beyond compare. However, this was not the reason why he was shocked. Yun Jian exerted force on her feet and her petite body flipped to the left. She had already retreated behind Hound. Hound didn't expect Yun Jian to be so agile. He frowned and the irritation in his heart intensified. If he didn't kill this little girl who spouted nonsense and even said, "You don't deserve to know who I am," he would write his name in reverse. Anger and fury intertwined in Hound's heart. It was just that the difference between fast and slow was only an instant. In the next second, Yun Jian's arm was like a coiling snake's body. She curled around Hound's arm. Then, a scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. They saw Yun Jian grab Hound's arm. She suddenly used a lot of strength and directly pulled Hound's arm. She lifted Hound up and threw him to the ground with his back facing up. This move was so fast that no one could see it clearly. Hound didn't even have time to turn around. However, they saw Yun Jian on the other side reach out her fair hands and grab Hound's spine before he landed on the ground. Crack! A crisp and horrifying sound was heard. With a bang, the Hound fell to the ground, no longer making a sound. Twisting the spine that supported a person's body would cause a person to die instantly. And this method was the usual method used by the assassins and female secret agents in the movie. Chapter 297. Murder. Yun Jian had killed Hound. The man and woman, who were the owners of the house, fainted on the spot when they saw this scene. They had not fainted when they were kidnapped by Hound, but now they had fainted. Compared to the man and woman, the group of Special Forces soldiers had at least been exposed to this kind of thing before. In spite of it, Yun Jian, a young girl, had killed Hound in front of everyone. This was beyond their expectations. Firstly, it was because of her skills. Secondly, she did not show the slightest bit of fear after killing someone. Was she really as simple as her appearance made her out to be? At this moment, Yun Jian had already walked towards the group of stunned Special Forces soldiers. She stood in front of them with Hound's corpse behind her. She did not show the slightest bit of fear after killing someone. Instead, she looked at the group of Special Forces soldiers and said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Yun Jian, codenamed Killer God. I'm a new Special Forces soldier under Gu Junjian." There was no need to hide these things. This group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her were all from the regular army. At the same time, they were on Gu Junjian's side. Yun Jian, Chu Ning, and the rest were the new talents of the younger generation that Gu Junjian had discovered. Hence, they were selected to join the Special Forces training camp as candidates. The successful completion of the previous mission also made Yun Jian and the rest official Special Forces soldiers. However, as of now, they were not from the regular army. This group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her had undergone even more brutal training. They were talents who had been carefully selected. They were members of the Special Forces like Gu Junjian. Actually, there was not much difference. In short, Yun Jian and the rest were new recruits, while this group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her were veterans. After Yun Jian finished her self-introduction, the group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her were obviously stunned. Naturally, they did not expect Yun Jian to be a member of the Special Forces. Not long after, someone immediately shouted, "You're the girl under Gu Junjian, codenamed Killer God." A tall and lean Special Forces soldier pointed at Yun Jian and exclaimed. This tall and lean Special Forces soldier was called Zhou Datu. When Zhou Datu exclaimed, everyone's gaze turned to Yun Jian. "You know me?" Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and asked. Under the watchful eyes of the Special Forces, Zhou Datu looked at Yun Jian excitedly and said, "That's right." Yes. Last time, the mission sent by the higher-ups was very difficult. Even the experienced veteran Special Forces soldiers couldn't complete it. In the end, this mission was taken over by Officer Gu. I heard that in the end, it was led by a young lady with the code name Killing God. She completed the mission in just half a day. That little girl is you, right? Zhou Datu looked at Yun Jian excitedly, waiting for her reply. Of course, all of the Special Forces soldiers present heard of course. It was said that the mission was accepted by a group of new recruits, and they completed it successfully in the end. However, they didn't know who the new candidates were. According to Zhou Datu, the previous mission with such difficulty was actually completed by this Yun Jian in front of them. Everyone could not help but be shocked by this. However, looking at the scene, Yun Jian alone killed Hound that so many of them could not handle. Just based on this point alone. Chapter 298. Yes, it's me. Yun Jian's voice was calm. No one could tell whether she was happy or sad. In spite of it, her answer stirred the crowd. I'm leaving now. It was only then that Yun Jian recalled that she had come out to defuse the time bomb and had been out for so long. Her brother should be worried, right? Oh. Zhou Datu replied to Yun Jian on behalf of his brother at once. Yun Jian then lifted her feet and left the place. The people here didn't stop him. Yun Jian did not introduce herself just now to leave her name. She had killed someone in public after all. Even if Hound was a member of the Kosha mercenaries in her past life, she had to be registered at the police station for murder according to Country Z's law. The main reason she had introduced herself was that she was unwilling to go to the police station. Her brother, Yun Yi, was still waiting for her to return safely. If she returned later, her brother would probably be worried. As for Hound, his death would not cause much of a stir. After all, death was a common occurrence in this line of work. Just like how Yun Jian was accidentally reborn into this body in her past life, it had been a long time since she appeared in public as the ace of secret agents, slaying God. It did not mean anything though. Even if she died, it would only cause a stir for a while before she disappeared. Times were changing, especially when it came to the assassin and secret agent ranking. The ranking could be changed at any time. Just like the death of Wolf Blade, who ranked 10th in the assassin ranking. Once his death was confirmed, the 10th place would naturally be replaced by someone behind him. The dominant position and identity would only last for a moment. Yun Jian had always left when she wanted to. Someone would take care of the aftermath at the scene. It was not something Yun Jian had to consider anymore. When Yun Jian walked back and saw Yun Yi and others at the side gate of DE High School that was far away from the factory, she went up to them. Xiao Jian. Yun Yi had been worried about his sister. He had been waiting here for a long time, but he didn't hear the explosion of the bomb at the factory. He gradually calmed down. Now that Yun Jian had returned, he was even more relieved. Master. Zhang Xiaofeng ran over with Chen Sini and Ling Yichen. The moment they saw Yun Jian, they felt relieved. Zhang Xiaofeng returned to his original appearance. His attitude towards Yun Jian was also somewhat sarcastic. Master, what did you do when you went back just now? Did he go to defuse that ticking time bomb? Heh, don't tell me you're really going to defuse a time bomb? Zhang Xiaofeng was actually just joking. However, Yun Jian had just run back, which was indeed very puzzling. Yun Jian did not reply. Just when they thought that she would stay silent, Yun Jian suddenly smiled with her eyes squinted. Her lips curled up as she replied, yes. With that, Yun Jian turned and led the way forward. Since something like this had happened in the school, the students who had escaped had naturally gone home. How would they dare to stay in school? Yun Jian's reply, however, stunned Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. Yun Jian had never spoken empty words. Since she had replied to Zhang Xiaofeng's half-joking and half-serious question, she had actually said, yes? Had she really gone to defuse a ticking time bomb? When Zhang Xiaofeng and the others came to their senses, they ran with exaggerated steps to catch up with Yun Jian. Hey, master, wait for me. Chapter 299. Because of this incident, the New Year's literary performance organized jointly by First High School and Longmen First High School did not go well. But overall, it went quite smoothly. Of course, no one would have expected this to happen. And Yun Jian had a few days of normal life. However, Yun Jian was not idle these days because Snake Lizard had sent her another message not long ago. Those old fellows in the Kosha mercenaries could no longer sit still this time and were planning something on a large scale. Moreover, Yun Jian, the real boss of the Kosha mercenaries, had not appeared for a long time. Those old fellows were probably going to revolt. When Yun Jian heard this news, she only narrowed her eyes slightly and then let Snake Lizard continue to keep an eye on those old fellows. And it seemed like she had to make a trip back to the Kosha mercenaries' headquarters. Some things had to be settled as soon as possible. Those old fellows could no longer sit still, and so could she. After sitting in the top positions for so many years, it was time for those old fellows to change their positions. This week, Yun Jian had just returned home from the military training camp. When she opened the door, she saw Ce, who had disappeared a lot. Her eyelids twitched. She had not seen him for a long time, and sometimes she even wondered where he was. But when she opened the door and saw the person she was thinking about standing in front of the door, Yun Jian was still shocked. But her expression was still very calm, and no one could tell what she was thinking. Why are you back? Yun Jian tried to look normal. She felt that she had not seen him for a long time. Why can't I come back? Siyi's handsome face came close to Yun Jian. He stood in front of the door, his long legs pressed against the wall, and his sharp eyes looked at Yun Jian. In the next second, he came forward, and his delicate face was less than 5 centimeters away from Yun Jian. "What are you doing?" Yun Jian took 2 steps back. She was about to step out of the door when Siyi suddenly grabbed her wrist. Her cheeks were slightly red, but her beautiful black eyes were darting left and right. Siyi looked at her, his breath just inches away from hers. The man's magnetic and pleasant voice came from the front. "Don't you want to know where I've been these days? Where you go has nothing to do with me." Yun Jian answered without even thinking. Then, she desperately shook her wrists, only to find that his grip was shockingly strong. Boom! Siyi stared at Yun Jian with his beautiful eyes. He stretched out his long legs and kicked the door shut. He grabbed Yun Jian's wrist with one hand and wrapped his other hand around Yun Jian's slender waist, pressing her against the door. "Are you crazy?" Yun Jian didn't know what was going on. She struggled for a while and her face was already rosy. Her small lips opened and closed, which was especially alluring in Siyi's eyes. He followed his own path and directly covered Yun Jian's seductive small mouth. Yun Jian could only feel her lips being pressed against his icy lips. She was extremely shy, but her body didn't have the urge to push him away. Just as Siyi was engrossed in kissing her seductive small mouth and pressing her against the door suddenly opened with a click. Then, there was the sound of the door being pushed open. It was just that since Siyi had pressed Yun Jian against the door, the person at the door could not enter even if they turned the lock. Chapter 300. Qin Yiru would never have dreamt that the reason she could not open the door was because there were 2 people standing inside. Yun Jian was pressed against the door by Siyi, who was kissing her forcefully. No matter how brave Yun Jian was, it was her first time doing something like this when she heard that Qin Yiru was at the door. She nudged Siyi, signaling for him to go upstairs quickly. Siyi leaned in with a grin. Taking advantage of the fact that Qin Yiru was at the door and she could not scream, he planted a soft kiss on Yun Jian's cheek. His lips were cold, causing Yun Jian's cheeks to flush instantly. Finally, Siyi went upstairs to his room under Yun Jian's push. Yun Jian did not continue to block the door that Qin Yiru was pushing. Instead, she reached out to open the door for Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru happened to be outside the door. She was shocked when she saw Yun Jian suddenly appearing in front of her. "Xiao Jian, why are you standing at the door?" Qin Yiru asked casually. "The door isn't working, so I came downstairs to open it," Yun Jian answered without looking at Qin Yiru with a sideways glance. "Oh!" Qin Yiru believed her and came in with a bag of vegetables and some ingredients. Just as she entered, she saw Yun Jian's flushed cheeks. Worried that her daughter was sick, Qin Yiru ran over to touch Yun Jian's forehead, mumbling, "Xiao Jian, why is your face so red? Are you having a fever? Come here and let Mom touch your forehead to feel your temperature." "Mom, I'm fine. It's just a little hot in the room," Yun Jian explained with a blush and found an excuse to go upstairs after that. Qin Yiru did not suspect anything as she went to prepare dinner happily. To Qin Yiru, her current life was nothing bad. Her son was outstanding and so was her daughter. Her job was going smoothly and there were no more worries like before. Qin Yiru was genuinely happy now. Just as Yun Jian went up to the 2nd floor, she was pulled aside by Siyi. Don't do that." Yun Jian was like a little girl, afraid that Siyi would do something weird to her just now, so she quickly spoke up. She did not hate what Siyi did to her just now. Instead, she looked forward to it. She did not know what was wrong with her. Why was she behaving like an ignorant young girl with her heart racing? Seeing Yun Jian's reaction, Siyi pressed his lips together and chuckled. I'm talking about something serious," he said. Did this mean that he would not do what he did to her just now? Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief and pressed her lips together, swaying them in front of Siyi's eyes. "Go on," Yun Jian said. "Kosha mercenaries. Do you need my help?" Siyi's starry eyes were fixed on Yun Jian, who stood not far away from him. Her petite figure made his heart itch constantly. Yun Jian's eyelids twitched when she heard Siyi mention kosha mercenaries, especially the meaning behind his words. She had never told Siyi that she was the boss of kosha mercenaries, but why did Siyi sound as though he knew everything? "What do you know?" Yun Jian furrowed her brows, her pretty little face frowning. Ce imprinted her furrowed brows in his heart. He could not help but reach out to touch her little face and say something that made Yunjian extremely shocked. Nothing that I want to know can escape my eyes. I know everything about you. His words were very ambiguous, but it made Yunjian's eyelids twitch. He knew everything? He knew everything about her? How far did he know? He knew that she was the boss of kosher mercenaries. Chapter 301. Looking at Yunjian's face contorted when her secret was exposed, Ce could not help but pull her close to him. He thought this way and he really did it. Ce pulled Yunjian into his arms. The girl's milky scent wafted into his nostrils, mixing with her slight body scent. Ce pursed his lips into a smile. Yunjian nudged Ce. Since Qin Yiru was cooking downstairs, she did not dare to make too much noise, so she could only bury herself in his body. Fortunately, she did not dislike the scent on his body. It was a faint, warm feeling with a hint of sweetness, like bee candy. Hugging the girl's petite frame, Ce did not ask any more questions. At this moment, nothing was more important to him than her. Ce only let go of Yunjian when Qin Yiru finished cooking dinner. During dinner, Ce sat close to Yunjian. "I eat more. This fish is fresh. We just bought it from the market. Eat more." During dinner, Qin Yiru even picked up food for Ce. In the end, she could not reach Ce and Yunjian, so she had to let Yunjian help Ce. Yunjian blushed slightly. Every bit of food she picked up for Ce was swallowed by him without hesitation. Even when Yunjian purposely picked up a few extra pieces of fatty meat for him, he swallowed them all without a hint of disdain. This made Yunjian feel helpless. On Saturday morning, Yunjian woke up before the sun rose. Ce was already waiting for her at the door. For the past few days, whenever Yunjian went out for a morning run, Ce would always tag along. Today was no exception. Because it was the weekend, Yun-yi happened to come home this weekend. Early in the morning, Yunjian tied her hair into a high ponytail and was full of energy. Yun-yi also woke up early today. Usually, Yun-yi would sleep until 9 in the morning. Today, Yun-yi woke up before 5 o'clock. At this moment, Yunjian was still tying her shoelaces on the first floor. Ce was standing beside her, staring straight at her. "Brother, where are you going so early today?" Yunjian felt strange and asked aloud. "Today is our class reunion." Yun-yi put on a pair of clean white shoes and walked out. He turned to bid farewell to Yunjian and Ce and left. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. After tying her shoelaces, she stood up and stretched before going out for a morning run. Ce kept following her. There were not many people who went out for a morning run in the morning. Most of the people who went out for a morning run were elderly men or women. It was rare for young people like Yunjian and Ce to go out early in the morning to exercise. After walking past a park and passing by a pavilion, Yunjian sat down to rest for a while. Ce was afraid that she would be thirsty, so he ran to a small shop nearby to buy her a bottle of mineral water. The two of them sat down in front of a small pavilion that was used to cool off in the summer. Behind the small pavilion were a few large trees. Behind the trees was a public toilet built from a low hut. At this moment, a few girls were standing in front of the toilet. The girls were talking very softly, but Yunjian could still hear them. Originally, Yunjian was not interested in what they were talking about. However, as the girls were talking, they suddenly mentioned a name that caught Yunjian's attention. "Hey, did you guys know? Chen Yubing from the 3rd class is going to do something big tonight." "What do you mean something big?" "Heh heh heh, she only told me about this. You guys better not spread it out. It's that senior Yun-yi from the 1st year of high school. Do you guys know him? Hee hee, Chen Yubing likes that senior Yun-yi, but he doesn't seem to be interested in her. So tonight, Chen Yubing seems to be planning to give herself to him. She's thinking that what's done can't be undone. When the time comes, she won't have to be afraid that he won't admit it. Otherwise, she'll go to his house. Is this for real?" Chapter 302. Yunjian was just resting with Ce in the pavilion, but she didn't expect to hear her brother's name. And Chen Yubing's name. Chen Yubing was planning to offer herself? What's done can't be undone. That meant she was planning to hit on her brother. Yun Jian suddenly realized that her brother had woken up so early today to attend a class reunion. Since it was a class reunion, would Chen Yubing be there too? If that was the case, then it made sense. Chen Yubing was planning to take advantage of the class reunion to make a move on Yun Yi. Of course it's true. I even heard that a few classes are attending this class reunion. Chen Yubing was the one who organized it. Although it sounds like a class reunion, it's actually Chen Yubing's scheme to trick senior Yun Yi. The two girls didn't realize that someone had overheard their conversation. On the contrary, since there was no one around them, they didn't try to cover up their conversation as much as before. Will senior Yun Yi be there? The other girl asked curiously. Of course. The girl who had been bragging became even more enthusiastic. It was as if she wanted to tell the other girl everything she knew. Chen Yubing is really something. Although she's not in the same class as Yun Yi, she knows people in her class. She secretly asked her classmates to invite all the students to the reunion. She didn't let anyone know that she was the one who organized it. Then won't senior Yun Yi be tricked? The other girl interrupted. That's right. After the two girls finished whispering and walked away hand in hand, Yun Jian, who was standing in front of the washroom where the two girls had been, finally revealed a trace of ruthlessness. She pursed her lips and a shrewd look flashed across her eyes. Ce, who was standing at the side, placed his hands lazily in his pockets. A trace of viciousness flashed across his handsome face. She dared to touch his brother-in-law, that woman called Chen something Bing? Was she looking for death? If Yun Jian could hear Ce's thoughts, she would definitely not be able to hold back her sarcasm. When did her brother become his brother-in-law? Are you going back? Yun Jian turned around. Her beautiful and delicate little face was facing Ce, and her long eyelashes fluttered up and down. The meaning of her words was very obvious. Of course, she couldn't leave Yun Yi alone. She was asking him if he wanted to go with her. I'll go with you. Ce turned his handsome body to the side. He lowered his head to look at the girl who was a head shorter than him and smiled brightly. Yun Jian nodded and said, Let's go home now. You drive. Yun Yi had been out for some time. If Chen Yubing was really prepared, she should still be able to make it in time if she rushed over now. Although the two girls had said that Chen Yubing was planning to give herself to Yun Yi at night, Yun Jian felt that with Chen Yubing's personality, as long as Chen Yubing fell for her trap, Chen Yubing would immediately make her move. Yun Jian's guess was right. Chen Yubing was indeed planning to make her move when she had her way. At this moment, Yun Yi was already singing with her classmates at a karaoke bar. They had been having a gathering for some time. Although there were also classmates from other classes, such as Chen Yubing, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Chapter 303. The moment they heard that they were going to play a game, the group of students who were already tired from singing karaoke immediately perked up. Zhu, what game are we playing? A boy asked the girl who suggested the game earlier. The girl called Zhu, who wasn't particularly pretty, replied to the boy. Following that, Zhu glanced at Chen Yubing, who was sitting quietly not too far away, but was extremely agitated. Finally she said to everyone, Don't worry, I'll decide on the rules of the game. Don't worry, I guarantee that it'll be fair, fun, and exciting. Zhu was Yun Yi's classmate. At the same time, everyone thought that Zhu was the one who organized the party. In fact, Zhu was a girl who was bought over by Chen Yubing. After she was bought over by Chen Yubing, she immediately helped Chen Yubing. For example, when Chen Yubing wanted to organize the party, Zhu stood out and made everyone think that she was the one who organized the party. Seeing that Zhu was following her plan step by step, Chen Yubing, who was hiding in the corner, couldn't help but smile. Yun Yi said that he didn't like her? Then she would make him have no choice but to like her. So what if he didn't like her? Once they were done, even if Yun Yi didn't like her, he would have to take responsibility for her. At that time, even if his powerful sister, Yun Jian, wanted to do anything, it would be nonsense. Moreover, she, Chen Yubing, had already planned everything out. Even Yun Yi's mother, Qin Yiru, would be invited to the party after she and Yun Yi were done. This way, she wouldn't have to worry that Yun Yi would deny it. Zhu was a girl who knew how to talk. Although she didn't look very good, She quickly moved the crowd. Everyone has to participate. We're a team. With Zhu Zhu's words, Yun-yi, who didn't want to participate in the game, was also urged by the other boys in the class to participate. Su Haokol didn't come today because he had something to do. As a good friend, Yun-yi naturally understood. Yun-yi was a little against this kind of game, but under the boys' urging, she still participated. The game that Zhu Zhu was talking about was actually very simple. Everyone would sit together in a circle, and in the circle, there would be a turntable. The turntable would be turned by Zhu Zhu, and in the end, whoever the turntable turned to would have to draw lots. This lot was drawn from a pile of folded paper. The punishment was written on the paper. Generally speaking, whoever the wheel reached would have to draw a piece of paper from the pile of paper with the punishment written on it. If it was blank, it meant that he would not be punished. However, if the punishment was written on the paper, he would have to follow the instructions written on the paper. Zhu Zhu was an old hand at manipulating the abacus. She deliberately manipulated a few people, and in the end, the abacus fell on Yun-yi. Then she drew lots for Yun-yi. She had switched these pieces of paper with the same content written on them. When Yun-yi opened the paper, she saw the words written on it. Drink a glass of special wine. Wow! At this moment, everyone saw it and shouted. Because this glass of special wine was made by mixing all kinds of fruit juice and all kinds of wine together. It was a dark cuisine of fruit juice and wine. It tasted terrible, but it was also the highlight of this game. Whoever was unlucky enough to be pointed by the turntable and draw this piece of paper would have to drink this terrible glass of wine. Drink it! Drink it! Drink it! Yun-yi was unlucky enough to fall for it. Everyone followed suit. Everyone wanted to see a good show, so they shouted even louder. Helpless, Yun-yi could only pick up the glass of fruit juice and wine and drink it in one gulp. There was a burning sensation, and the smell was extremely unpleasant. However, because of this, Yun-yi didn't notice the unusual taste in this glass of wine. Chapter 304. Yun-yi felt a little dizzy after downing the cup of specially made wine. He wasn't used to drinking, but because this was a group game, he drank it down. Zhu Zhu kept the game going, and Yun-yi didn't get turned. Chen Yubing, who was sitting opposite Yun-yi, kept staring at him with a burning gaze. Hey Yun-yi, you don't look so good. Why don't I send you home first? Just then, a boy suddenly spoke up. This boy was actually someone who had been bribed by Chen Yubing. His name was Zhao Yishan, and he was Yun-yi's classmate. In this era, people who weren't particularly rich, especially students who were studying in school, were easily bewitched by money. Chen Yubing was smart enough to take advantage of this. Yeah, Zhao Yishan, send him home first. Don't let anything happen to him. Zhu Zhu pretended that she didn't know anything. She blinked and gave Zhao Yishan a look. When Zhao Yishan saw this, he didn't care whether Yun-yi answered him or not. He walked over to support Yun-yi and left. Yun-yi's tall body was supported by Zhao Yishan, who was thinner and weaker than him. Yun-yi felt that his throat was very dry. His eyes were a little dazed, and his body was a little hot. He was supported by Zhao Yishan and left the place. Zhao Yishan supported Yun-yi and walked out. He gestured to Chen Yubing twice, meaning that he was going to take him to the place they had planned. Come, come, come. Let's continue playing. Zhu Zhu tilted her head and saw Yun-yi being supported by Zhao Yishan as they walked out. She revealed a big smile. She could almost see the reward Chen Yubing would give her after the game was over. The other students didn't notice Yun-yi's abnormality. After all, everyone was in high spirits at this time, so they started a new round of the game. Not long after, Chen Yubing also found an excuse and left. Yun Jian and Ce ran home on foot. Ce started the Lamborghini and drove straight to the karaoke bar. Fortunately, Yun-yi had told her the address of the karaoke bar they went to in the morning. Therefore, Yun Jian did not need to check and went straight to that place. It was one of the few karaoke bars in Longmen City. The KTV of this era was called karaoke. It was a place for serious singing, but at the same time, it was also a place where crooks mixed in with honest folks. After checking the address of the private room at the front desk, Yun Jian went straight there. Outside the K-18 private room, Yun Jian had already found out that the private room Yun-yi and the others had booked was this K-18. She walked side by side with Ce, As she was closer to the door of the private room, she lifted her leg and kicked it open. Bang! The sharp eyes of the group of people who were playing with the roulette behind the door jumped for a while. Who's there? Facing Yun Jian, who had suddenly kicked the door open, the group was startled. Just as they focused, they saw Yun Jian and Ce walking in side by side. Hey! Isn't this Yun Yi's younger sister? Someone recognized Yun Jian and asked. Hearing that it was Yun Yi's younger sister, Zhu, who had just done something wrong, dodged guiltily. Yun Jian caught Zhu's evasive gaze and looked around. Seeing that her brother was not in the room, she lowered her gaze and asked, "Where's my brother?" I think Xueqi Shan sent him home. Your brother doesn't seem to be feeling well." Someone answered at once. Not feeling well? Yun Jian scoffed and strode to Zhu. Reaching out, her cold fingers grabbed Zhu's throat. Chapter 305. Everyone's eyes widened in shock when they saw Yun Jian barging in and going over to strangle Zhu's throat without a word. Among them, some of Yun Yi's classmates had seen Yun Jian before and knew that Yun Yi had a beautiful sister. In the past, they only thought of Yun Jian as a weak girl, the type who should be protected under the wings of a boy. But until just now, everyone's understanding of Yun Jian had been overturned. She actually choked Zhu's throat the moment she walked in. What was going on? Ah! At this moment, Zhu, who was choked by Yun Jian, made two sounds. She looked in panic at the girl who was choking her and her face froze. This girl was Yun Yi's sister. Yun Yi's sister. What are you doing? Let go, you're going to kill her. Someone couldn't help but shout when they saw Yun Jian choking Zhu. Yun Jian's eyes were fixed on Zhu. She suddenly let go just as Zhu was about to suffocate. Zhu almost suffocated. She was about to cry when she finally got air again. Yun Jian looked at her coldly. She looked down at Zhu and said, "Are you going to say it or not?" Yun Jian didn't know where Yun Yi had gone after leaving this place, but when she first walked in and heard that she was Yun Yi's sister, she saw Zhu's evasive gaze clearly. Chen Yubing had a plan, but it would be difficult for her to succeed alone. So the best way was to get help. When Zhu's gaze fell on Yun Jian, even if Yun Jian wasn't here, she could tell from a person's gaze whether they had done something wrong. When Zhu heard that she was Yun Yi's sister, her evasive gaze was telling Yun Jian that Zhu was involved in Yun Yi's matter. Zhu did not seem to realize the danger she was in. Everyone, including the group, thought that Yun Jian was joking just now. Say what? Zhu almost suffocated from the choking, but she still pretended that she didn't know anything. She looked at Yun Jian innocently and even tried to turn her head to look at Ce. What a handsome man. Zhu's gaze gradually shifted from Yun Jian to Ce. Ce's handsome features looked as if they had been sculpted by God himself. His features were stunning. Some of the girls present also looked unabashedly at Ce. As for Yun Jian's threat, they quickly forgot about it. Ha! Yun Jian suddenly chuckled. That slight smile made one's hair stand on end. Just as Yun Jian decided to use the most decisive method to force Zhu to speak, Ce suddenly reached out and patted Yun Jian's shoulder, pulling her behind him. Zhu saw Ce's action and almost cried out in excitement. She thought that Ce had pulled Yun Jian away because of her looks. Was he going to comfort her? But Zhu was wrong. Chapter 306. Which one of the people present wasn't a student? They were all students of the school and had grown up under the protection of their parents and teachers. Although some of the children were more willful or at this age, they were still in the rebellious phase of their youth. There were even some students who thought they were very powerful, but ultimately, they were just a bunch of people who had never seen the real world. Hence, when they saw Ce take out a gun and point it at Zhu, they were so frightened that they screamed. Ah! Gun! The girls screamed continuously, their high-pitched shouts echoing together. The boys pretended to be calm, but all of them were so frightened that their faces turned pale. It was obvious that none of them were really calm. Compared to them, Ce was holding a gun and pointing it at Zhu. Zhu was still thinking that Ce had stopped Yun Jian from interrogating her because he had a good impression of her. In the next second, he took out a gun and pointed it at her. Zhu knew some tricks, but she was just a girl studying in the school. When she saw the glaring muzzle between Ce's fair and slender fingers pointing at her head, She fell to the floor in fright and raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. What do you want to know? I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you everything. Juju was paralyzed on the ground in fear. She seemed to be afraid that Siyi's finger would really pull the trigger. Hence, she quickly knelt down in front of Yunjian and Siyi. Do you want to know where Yunyi went? I'll tell you. Don't kill me. Juju was trembling with fear as she looked at the gun in Siyi's hand. She quickly told them everything she knew. It's Chen Yubing. It's all Chen Yubing's fault. She asked me to invite everyone to a gathering and trick Yunyi into drinking that glass of wine. That glass of wine had been spiked with a drug, and the effects are very strong. Then, he made up an excuse for Zhao Yishan to take Yunyi away. Woo-woo, I don't know anything else. Juju was scared out of her wits. She was so scared that she spilled everything. As soon as Juju said that, everyone present widened their eyes in shock. Something like this actually happened. Who would have thought that Zhao Yishan's suggestion to send Yunyi home was for such a purpose? No one would have thought that Chen Yubing was such a woman. Where is he? Yun Jian asked while Juju was panicking. He was sent to a hotel by Zhao Yishan. Juju did not dare to hide anything under the gun. Which hotel? Yun Jian asked quickly. It's the one across the street, Juju said quickly. When Yun Jian heard that, she did not care about these people anymore. She turned and left. Seeing that Yun Jian had left, Juju stared at Siyi's perfect face a few more times in fear. However, she had no choice but to look away because she was afraid. I've already told you. Can you let me go? I beg you, I beg you. I won't dare to do it again. Juju almost kowtowed to Siyi. Do you think you're worthy of living in this world? Siyi sneered. His handsome eyebrows twitched. How could someone who wanted to harm his brother-in-law live? Just when everyone thought that Siyi was just joking, Siyi suddenly spoke. Chapter 307. Seeing Siyi pull the trigger without hesitation, the boys and girls present screamed and covered their faces. Everyone was afraid that the scene they were imagining would happen. Juju would be pierced by a bullet. Naturally, Juju screamed in fright. She could feel a bullet fly past her and right in front of her. In the next second, Juju fell to the ground with a thump. She wasn't dead, but had fainted from fright. The group of people present opened their eyes, trembling. They saw that Juju, who had fainted on the ground, had not been hit by a bullet. There was no sign of blood loss either. Everyone also noticed that the high ponytail on Juju's head had burst open. The bullet had brushed past Juju's ponytail and pierced the wall behind her. There was no better marksmanship than this. Everyone was stunned. The boys were even more in awe of Siyi's exquisite marksmanship. When they looked up to find the shooter, Siyi, they found that he had already left with Yun Jian. No one knew where he had gone. On the other side, Yun Yi was being supported by Zhao Yishan. When he was being helped out of the karaoke bar, he sensed that something was wrong. But his head was swollen and his vision was getting blurry. He had no choice but to follow Zhao Yishan's footsteps. Where are we going? Yun Yi used his thumb to pinch the back of his hand so that he wouldn't be completely submerged. Hee brother, you'll know when we get there. Zhao Yishan smiled slyly. In class, Zhao Yishan was never someone who could get along well with others, especially Yun Yi. He had never interacted with Zhao Yishan. Today, he was the first to say that he wanted to send him home. That alone was enough to make people suspicious. But Yun Yi really didn't have the strength to escape now. But Yun Yi kept pinching the back of his hand so that he could retain his last bit of consciousness. Zhao Yishan helped Yun Yi to the hotel across the street. According to his original plan, he helped Yun Yi to the hotel. Just as Zhao Yishan was about to push Yun Yi onto the big bed in the hotel room, Yun Yi suddenly turned sideways. She used the last bit of strength she had been saving and pushed Zhao Yishan to the ground. Yun Yi, on the other hand, ran out of the room by himself. His tall body moved forward, and when he exited the hotel room, he even closed the door behind him. His tall figure walked through the corridors of the hotel rooms. Yun Yi's vision became more and more blurry. He felt his body constantly emitting heat and an unknown desire. The drug that Chen Yubing had given him was very strong. It could be said that she had no intention of giving him a way out. At this time, even if Yun-yi was stupid, she should know that she must have been drugged. Combined with his experience tonight, he had already guessed who the person who had drugged him was. But now was not the time to think about this. He ran all the way through the corridor. In his blurred vision, he seemed to see a door open. Zhao Yishan would catch up with him soon. If Yun-yi hadn't been drugged, he could have taken on 3 people like Zhao Yishan. But at this time, Yun-yi was drugged, and his body was weak and powerless. Fortunately, his body was strong. Even if he only had a little strength left, he was able to overpower Zhao Yishan and run out. Just then, he saw the door of a hotel room open in front of him. Yun-yi ran in without thinking. Chapter 308. Swish swish swish. After the door was locked, Yun-yi calmed down. He covered his chest and felt the heat in his body, but he also heard the sound of water splashing from the bathroom inside the hotel room. Water. Yun-yi calmed down. His eyes were a little hazy, but he could still see the outline of the room. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His whole body was hot, especially in his current situation. He really needed water to relieve the heat in his body. Yun-yi walked to the bathroom of the hotel room, pushed open the frosted glass door, and walked in. Clack! It was the sound of something falling out of shock. At this time, the scene in the bathroom was revealed. Yun-yi's eyes were blurry, but he could still see the scene in front of him. He saw a 15 or 16-year-old girl standing naked under the shower head, washing her body. The girl's smooth skin could be seen clearly even though Yun-yi's eyes were blurry. Those proud and upright twin peaks, as well as the girl's clean and white body, were presented in front of Yun-yi just like that. He could vaguely see that the girl's face was very good. She looked sweet, and was the cute and delicate type. But after Yun-yi saw the scene in front of him, the girl's panicked eyes darted around like a deer. Ah! The girl screamed. She ran to the side, grabbed a bath towel with her small hand, and wrapped it around her body as fast as she could. Who are you? Hooligan! Shameless! The girl screamed and pointed at Yun-yi, spitting out 2 unsightly words. Yun-yi used his white fingers to grab the frosted glass door of the bathroom. He saw the girl's white body swaying in front of his eyes, and then quickly covered it up. He felt the heat in his body become more and more unbearable. I! Yun-yi's hoarse voice sounded, but it soon weakened. At this moment, the young girl standing in front of them was blushing. She carefully sized up Yun-yi and discovered that Yun-yi's face was completely red. It was obvious that she had been drugged. You were drugged? The young girl wrapped her petite body, her cute and delicate little face slightly wrinkled. She took 2 steps towards Yun-yi, then finally bit her lip, but still walked over. Are you okay? The young girl reached out her hand and touched Yun-yi's forehead. As soon as Yun-yi's skin came into contact with the girl's icy cold skin, he felt the heat in his body dissipate a little. He didn't know where he got the strength from, but he actually lost control and grabbed the girl's small hand. Ah! The girl's hand was grabbed, and in her panic, her other hand loosened. As a result, the towel that was covering her body fell to the ground. You. Stop it. I can detoxify the poison. I can detoxify the poison in your body. The young girl blinked her eyes in panic and looked at Yun-yi in horror. However, Yun-yi's eyes were already red. He pulled the girl's icy cold body over and pulled her hand into his embrace. Outside the hotel, Yun-jian and Ce rushed in together. Yun-jian was a little flustered. She was about to kick open the hotel room door one by one to search for Yun-yi, but Ce grabbed her hand and brought her to the hotel's surveillance room. In the monitoring room, he tapped on the computer on Yun-jian's behalf with his long fingers and pulled up the video in no time. Yun-yi was supported by Zhao Yishan to a room, but she quickly ran out, and Zhao Yishan chased after her. Chapter 309. Brother escaped from that room and went into room 6011. Ce checked Yun-yi's condition on the computer and walked over to Yun-jian. Your brother. Yun-jian relaxed when she heard that Yun-yi was fine. At the same time, she heard Ce call Yun-yi brother, and immediately grasped the key point. He was obviously her brother, okay? Since when did her brother become his brother? The corners of Ce's lips quirked up as he replied with squinted eyes. Your brother agreed to it himself. In fact, He had accidentally revealed all his thoughts. Her brother would become his brother sooner or later. Oh! Yunjian glanced at Ce and walked out with Ce. Yun-yi was now on the 6th floor. When Yun-yi broke free from Zhao Yishan and ran to room 6011 from another room, she was actually quite a distance away and had even turned a corner. When Yunjian and Ce arrived on the 6th floor, they saw Zhao Yishan standing in front of room 6011 and trying to break down the door. Yun-yi had just been drugged and her body was weak. Fortunately, she was one step ahead of Zhao Yishan and went into another room to lock the door. Zhao Yishan was one step behind. He stood at the door anxiously and started to think of a way to break down the door. Yunjian went straight to the door. This time, she didn't let Ce do it for her. Instead, she walked over and grabbed Zhao Yishan's collar. She easily dragged Zhao Yishan, who was much taller than her, over. "How dare you hurt my brother?" She glared at Zhao Yishan and said through gritted teeth. I. Zhao Yishan had seen Yunjian before. He recognized her at first sight and didn't know what to say for a moment. Yunjian scoffed and released her grip abruptly. At the same time, she extended her leg to kick Zhao Yishan's stomach. Bang! Zhao Yishan's fat body was directly sent flying. He fell to the ground with a plop. His fat body trembled as he fainted from the impact. Yunjian didn't care. She walked to the door of room 6011 and took out a small blade. She held the blade with her fingers and spun it nimbly on the door lock. After a while, the door opened with a click. Breaking down doors was her specialty. In her previous life, she had snuck into all sorts of places to steal treasures to complete missions. Every time, she would silently unlock the door and sneak out unscathed. The moment the door opened, Yunjian stepped in. Ce's tall figure stood by her side. When Yunjian and Ce entered the room together, they saw two people hugging each other on the bed. To be exact, Yun-yi was the only one who had his eyes closed. The floor was littered with messy clothes. It was hard for one not to think of the wrong things when they saw such a scene. Yunjian's eyelids twitched when she saw this scene. She saw her brother lying on the bed with a young girl who was about her age. The two of them were covered with a blanket. The young girl's cute and delicate face made people want to dote on her. Her delicate face was like a baby's face. Her beautiful face was so delicate that people couldn't take their eyes off of her. Unlike Yunjian's delicate face, the young girl's face had a hint of childishness like a baby's, but there was an indescribable beauty to it. However, what surprised Yunjian wasn't that the young girl was lying on the bed with her brother Yun-yi. Compared to the young girl and her brother Yun-yi hugging each other naked, the young girl's identity was even more shocking. She was Yunjian's acquaintance. This young girl was a high-ranking member of the Kosha mercenaries. The young girl's code name was Poison Lady. In the Kosha mercenaries, she was originally Snake, Lizard's disciple. However, the young girl's poison skills were even worse than Snake, Lizard's. Hence, in her previous life, Yunjian would often bring her along on missions. It could be said that other than Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard, Poison Lady was Yunjian's biggest partner. However, Poison Lady's ranking in the Kosha mercenaries wasn't one of the top few. This could be seen from Poison Lady's code name. Poison Lady. Poison Lady. The young girl was an expert in using poison. However, other than poison, she didn't know anything else. Chapter 310. Lady Venom's identity in Kosha mercenaries was different from Tanuki's. Tanuki, who came to give Yunjian her beloved Ferrari LaFerrari, was different from Lady Venom. Tanuki was Snake, Lizard's subordinate, while Lady Venom was Snake, Lizard's disciple. Both Tanuki and Lady Venom had baby faces and were petite and adorable, but Lady Venom was about 10 years younger than Tanuki. More importantly, Lady Venom was not capable, but she was chosen by Snake, Lizard, to be her disciple because of her skill in using poison. Lady Venom's skill in using poison was something that even Yunjian was impressed by. Therefore, other than Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard, Lady Venom was Yunjian's right-hand man. Her skill in using poison was a great help to Yunjian. Other than her mature-sounding code name, Lady Venom also had a nice name, Qingyu. As Yunjian stared unblinkingly at Qingyu, Qingyu noticed Yunjian as well. Qingyu had come to look for Yunjian under Snake, Lizard's instruction. It could be said that she came to Longmen City to look for the boss of Kosha mercenaries, Yun Jian. Before she came, Snake Lizard had described Yun Jian's recent situation to her as much as possible, and she had seen Yun Jian's photo in advance. The boss of Kosha mercenaries had become someone else. Snake Lizard did not mention this to anyone else other than Qing Yu. Qing Yu came to Longmen City to look for Yun Jian because she was Snake Lizard's disciple despite being Snake Lizard's assistant in her past life. It was also because Qing Yu was the person closest to Yun Jian in her past life that Snake Lizard did not hide the fact that Yun Jian had been reborn as someone else. It was just that Qing Yu did not expect that she would still be so clumsy that she forgot to close the door when she showered. She did not expect a boy to barge in. A boy who was drugged. In spite of it, nothing happened between Qing Yu and Yun Yi. She hid on the bed with Yun Yi because she was helping Yun Yi with the antidote. The drug was difficult to detoxify. Yun Yi who was drugged would be doomed if there was no other woman around. However, it was different for Qing Yu who was an expert in detoxification. She could detoxify all poisons in the world. This was why she was brought by Yun Jian's side. In spite of it, Qing Yu did not expect Yun Jian to barge in when she was cooling Yun Yi with her body to detoxify him. Yun Jian was the boss of Kosha mercenaries. Slaying? We didn't do it. Qing Yu was slaying God was slaying God was slaying God was slaying Qing was slaying God? Other than being proficient in using poison, Qing Yu was no different from an ordinary girl. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, knowing that Qing Yu knew who she was. Snake Lizard must have asked Qing Yu to come to Longmen City. In fact, Qing Yu was a key figure in her annihilation of Kosha mercenaries in her past life. Other than Snake. Lizard and Tiger. Leopard's brute strength. Qing Yu's poison was colorless and tasteless. Snake Lizard was an expert in using poison as well, but compared to Qing Yu, she was a notch weaker. Chapter 3:11. Yun Jian's heart was pounding as she watched the scene unfold before her. She suppressed her surprise and was too embarrassed to stay any longer when she saw that her brother, Yun Yi, had woken up. After all, she had never expected such a scene. In spite of it, she was thankful that the girl sleeping next to Yun Yi was not Chen Yubing, regardless of whether Qing Yu and Yun Yi had done anything. Otherwise, with Chen Yubing's character, she might not stop until she caused more trouble. You guys. Cough cough, we'll head out first. Come out once you're dressed. Yun Jian gave Qing Yu a look. Qing Yu was the one who had stayed the longest by Yun Jian's side in his past life. Yun Jian would usually bring her along when he went out on a mission, so Qing Yu naturally understood the meaning behind Yun Jian's look. Qing Yu nodded with a lowered head. Yun Jian then dragged Ce out. Yun Yi, who was in the room, turned over and woke up. Qing Yu's petite figure was the first thing he saw when he came back to his senses, but Yun Yi was stunned at the same time. He suddenly recalled the scene before he fainted. He had been drugged and had managed to escape. Then, he saw a door and rushed in. Later on, he even saw a slender young girl taking a bath, and he immediately hugged her. What happened after that? He could not remember what happened after that at all. Qing Yu, on the other hand, felt her eyelids twitch when Yun Yi's handsome face stared at her. Anyone with a discerning eye would be able to see what was going on in this situation. Yun Yi was not stupid. He did not know if he had done anything to the girl, but the girl was lying on the bed with him innocently. Based on this point alone, he was a bastard. I'm sorry. Yun Yi tapped his forehead with his fair, slender fingers and spat out, I'll be responsible for you. Qing Yu stared at Yun Yi blankly. She only wanted to say that nothing had happened between them. Outside the room, Yun Jian and Ce were standing in the corridor of the hotel. Yun Jian didn't look too upset. In fact, as long as Chen Yubing was not lying on Yun Yi's bed, Yun Jian would not blame herself. Not long after, Yun Yi and Qing Yu walked out of the house neatly dressed. Qing Yu's face was pinkish and rosy, looking bitter. Yun Yi wasn't any better. After all, he was an adolescent boy, and Yun Yi was not the kind of boy who would mess around. He had never held a girl's hand other than his sister since he was young, let alone sleeping naked on the same bed with a girl. Come with me, Yun Jian said, looking at Qing Yu. Qing Yu looked up at Yun Jian and followed him. Yun Yi, on the other hand, thought that Yun Jian knew that he was sleeping with Qing Yu. He panicked at the thought of his sister's formidable skills. Xiao Jian, it's my fault. I accidentally ruined the girl's innocence. You don't hit the girl. Before Yun Yi could finish, however, he was cut off by Yun Jian. Don't worry, I won't eat her up, Yun Jian said with a chuckle. It was normal for Yun Yi to not know that she knew Qing Yu. Chapter 3:12. When she came to a quiet corner with Yun Jian, Qing Yu's tender and adorable baby face was flushed with a tinge of redness. Once they were away from Yun Yi and Ce, Qing Yu started to explain. Sha, we didn't do anything. I know. Yun Jian interrupted Qing Yu, pressing her lips together and changing the topic. Did you come to Longmen City to look for me? Once Yun Jian changed the topic, Qing Yu did not dwell on the embarrassing incident just now. She nodded, still retaining the shyness of a young girl in her movements. Master asked me to look for you. If Yun Jian had not witnessed Qing Yu's poisoning skills, she might have believed that Qing Yu was just an ordinary girl. You can stay in Longmen City then, Yun Jian continued. Really? Qing Yu asked in surprise. Qing Yu still retained the lively and adorable attitude of a young girl. Snake. Lizard had taken Qing Yu as her disciple when she was very young and had been following Yun Jian on Snake. Lizard's behalf since then. Qing Yu's excellent poisoning skills had allowed her to avoid the brutal assassin or secret agent training. In spite of that, Qing Yu still had the basic ability to protect herself. After all, if she could not even protect herself, Qing Yu would not have the chance to stay by Yun Jian's side. She, Yun Jian, never wanted useless people by her side. You're about the same age as me now. Follow me as a student from now on, Yun Jian said to Qing Yu with a nod. She usually did not have any big secrets in front of Qing Yu. Qing Yu, on the other hand, was one of the people who had been with her the longest, just like Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard. I'm going to enroll? Qing Yu pointed at herself in surprise and asked Yun Jian. That's right. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and nodded before she continued to ask Qing Yu. How's the group of old things? Those old bastards were the lackeys of the previous boss of the Kosha mercenaries. Qing Yu came from the Kosha mercenaries, so she must know more about these things. It was only then that Qing Yu spoke. Master said that they'll be conducting a large-scale operation soon. Yes. Come with me to the Kosha mercenaries in a few days, Yun Jian said. Qing Yu nodded in agreement. When it came to Yun Jian's arrangement, Qing Yu was just like Snake, Lizard, Tiger, Leopard. When Yun Jian and Qing Yu walked out from the corner, they saw Ce and Yun Yi finishing their conversation. Qing Yu could not help blushing when she saw Yun Yi. Brother, you guys go back first, Yun Jian said to Yun Yi. Xiao Jian, you found me so quickly. Do you know who drugged me? Yun Yi spoke through gritted teeth. Of course, he hated the person who drugged her. If it were not for that person, he would not have allowed the girl to lose her chastity for no reason. Although Yun Yi knew that he did not really do anything to the girl, the fact that the two of them were hugging each other naked was not a pleasant thing to say. Chen Yubing. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes with a murderous glint before she told Yun Yi, Brother, I'll handle this for you. How dare Chen Yubing set her eyes on her brother? Then, was she ready to accept her wrath? Chapter 3:13. In the end, Yun Jian got Ce to drive Yun Yi home first while Qing Yu followed Yun Jian. Ce was very obedient to Yun Jian. Once he heard that Yun Jian wanted him to bring his future brother-in-law home first, he quickly dragged him away. Slaying. He's your brother? Qing Yu looked up at Yun Jian and asked shyly. Yun Jian grinned and patted Qing Yu's shoulder, saying casually, Let's go. It's rare for us to meet again after our last parting. Let's do something big. Everyone knew that slaying god loved money. Look, she had just been reborn in Longmen City for a few months and had already started new crews. Whatever capital she had invested, she was earning back double now. In her past life, Yun Jian's mission had never been less than $10 million. Yun Jian had been diligent and happy in accepting missions in her past life. Of course, when Yun Jian accepted a lot of missions, she would even bring Qing Yu with her for convenience. Qingyu would poison a bunch of people, but what about Yunjian? She would kill when she had to and sneak when she had to. Both of them had completed many missions together. Heh! Qingyu chuckled when she heard that they were going to do something big and followed Yunjian eagerly. As for Chen Yubing, she was certain that Yun-Yi would not be able to escape from her this time. She had even drugged herself so that her scheme could be carried out smoothly. Of course, Chen Yubing came to the hotel later than Yunjian and Ce. She felt that there was no need for her to rush. Yun-Yi was already in her hands now. She had to take it slow. In order to make sure that her trick was flawless, she even ran home to get the only color camera in her house. When Chen Yubing took the camera, however, she swallowed the aphrodisiac. Yao Yao ran excitedly from home to the 6th floor of the hotel. When she arrived at the hotel room that she had booked, she was knocked unconscious by someone with a stick. When she woke up again, Chen Yubing had been tied up by Yunjian. What was going on? Chen Yubing seemed to have suddenly realized the danger. She looked at Yunjian in horror and asked, "You? Why are you here?" Yunjian sneered when she heard Chen Yubing ask her why she was here. She stared coldly at Chen Yubing and her eyes flashed with a strong sense of viciousness. "What do you think? What do you want to do to me?" Chen Yubing raised her voice in fear. At this time, Chen Yubing felt that the aphrodisiac in her body began to take effect. She gave herself an aphrodisiac too, Qingyu told Yunjian as she looked at Chen Yubing. Qingyu was an expert in using poison. At the same time, she was well versed in all kinds of medicine, so she could tell at first glance that Chen Yubing had given herself an aphrodisiac too. Yunjian did not expect Chen Yubing to give herself that kind of medicine. She looked disgusted and turned to look at Qingyu with a smirk. Since she likes this medicine so much, give her something stronger. What do you want to do to me? Chen Yubing screamed when she heard Yunjian. She looked at Yunjian in extreme fear and screamed, "I'll be generous and let you experience what you wanted to do to my brother." Yunjian smirked maliciously. Chapter 3:14. Sister Jian, I've recently developed a super potent aphrodisiac. I was worried that no one would test it on me. Qingyu pouted, a wicked smirk on her adorable doll-like face. She told Yunjian. In her past life, Qingyu had always called Yunjian slaying, but their identities were different now. Moreover, Yunjian did not show up as slaying god, so Qingyu called her Sister Jian instead. Use it on her and throw her out on the street. Yunjian recollected her disgust and stood up to declare her sovereignty. "No, you can't do this to me, you can't do this to me. I won't let you go if you do this to me." Chen Yubing shrieked again when she heard Yunjian's judgment. "I'll be waiting." Yunjian chuckled and looked at Chen Yubing in disdain, continuing, "Do you think I'll give you a chance to retaliate? Chen Yubing, you should have expected this day to come since you dared to hit on my brother." "Sister Jian, the injection is ready," Qingyu told Yunjian as she came over with a syringe in her hand. Yunjian nodded, ignoring Chen Yubing who screamed and cried and begged for mercy. Qingyu looked sweet, but she was born with the ability to concoct and administer poison. Her hand that held the syringe plunged the syringe into Chen Yubing's body mercilessly. Chen Yubing's eyes rolled back and she fainted. There was an exciting striptease going on the street. Chen Yubing's mouth was agape as she unconsciously touched her skin on the crowded street, tearing off piece after piece of underwear. Chen Yubing wasn't particularly ugly. Her skin was slightly white, and at this moment, she was lying on the crowded street, constantly pulling off her clothes. She was moaning softly, "I'm hot, hot." As more and more people gathered around, Chen Yubing became more and more excited as she tore at her clothes. In the end, she even tore off her underwear. At this moment, Yun-Yi's classmates walked out of the karaoke hall together. Seeing a lot of people on the street, they ran over to take a look out of curiosity. He wouldn't have known if he didn't look, but when he did, he was shocked. It turned out to be Chen Yubing taking off her clothes in front of everyone on the street. Furthermore, he was completely naked. It's Chen Yubing." A student pointed at Chen Yubing who was lying on the ground and shouted in shock and fear. Not far from the main street, Yunjian's tall and slender figure was wrapped in a loose down jacket. The jacket couldn't cover her thin and slender body. Her long black hair was stuck to her back in a high ponytail, making Yunjian look very energetic. On the other side, Chen Yubing had completely lost her face. From now on, she would be despised by everyone because of her actions today. This was the outcome of those who dared to lay their hands on Yun Jian's brother. Sister Jian, that's it? You're not going to kill her? Qing Yu, who stood aside, blinked and asked in surprise. Forget about a woman like Chen Yubing who schemed against Yun Jian's brother. Yun Jian in her past life would have killed those who spoke rudely. According to Yun Jian's style in her past life, it would be a miracle if she did not chop Chen Yubing into pieces. That was why Qing Yu was surprised. She had a baby face and mediocre skills, but she was used to fighting and killing when she was with Yun Jian. Chapter 3:15. After what had happened, Yun Yi would keep an eye out in the future, but no one had expected Chen Yubing to do something like this. In spite of it, Chen Yubing had really met her retribution. The next day, shocking news spread from Yun Yi's school. Everyone in the school knew that Chen Yubing was having a gathering with her classmates on a certain street yesterday, but for some reason, she had taken off her clothes on the street and was completely naked in the end. Some called her an exhibitionist while others called her a slut who could not help feeling lonely without a man. Chen Yubing was completely ruined here. In spite of this, it was no longer important because Chen Yubing transferred schools the next day and no one knew where she had gone to. At the same time, Yun Jian had already enrolled Qing Yu in school using New Cruz's name. Qing Yu was about the same age as Yun Jian. She was assigned to Yun Jian's class and became Yun Jian's classmate. Not everyone could enroll in Longmen E Junior High School, especially since Qing Yu was a transfer student. It was even more difficult to arrange for her to enroll directly. In spite of it, Yun Jian's New Cruz had already established a foothold in Longmen City. Yun Jian only had to get Zhang Jifan to greet the headmaster of Longmen E Junior High School, and Qing Yu was successfully enrolled. After Qing Yu became Yun Jian's classmate, she got along well with Chen Xinyi, which surprised Yun Jian. Qing Yu and Chen Xinyi got to know each other quickly once they met. Both of them had endless things to talk about with Yun Jian around, nearly causing Yun Jian's ears to grow calluses. Everything seemed to have settled down. This weekend, Qing Yu and Chen Xinyi went shopping in the neighboring city early in the morning. They went there because while Longmen City was a city with convenient transportation and overseas trade, there was a place called the World Trade Center in Qingshan City that was closest to Longmen City. It was a huge shopping mall that was famous in the country. The World Trade Center was the must-visit place in Zhe Province. This was because the World Trade Center was not only the place with the most overseas transactions in Z country. Here, as long as there were domestic and foreign items, they could be bought. When girls went shopping for clothes, the World Trade Center was undoubtedly the first choice. Because here, one could appreciate the style of clothing from all over the world. When Yun Jian was reborn in Zhe Province's Longmen City, she had never been to the World Trade Center in Qingshan City, which was the closest to Longmen City. In addition, she was not going to the military training camp this week, and the coldest winter was coming. She also planned to buy some warm clothes for Xiao Yunzhu. Therefore, he followed Qing Yu, Chen Xinyi, and took Xiao Yunzhu on the bus to Qingshan City. She was going to the World Trade Center to pick out some warm clothes for Xiao Yunzhu. When Ce heard that Yun Jian was bringing Xiao Yunzhu to Qingshan City, he followed them without a word. The group of 5 chose to take the bus to Qingshan City. Unexpectedly, the bus to Qingshan City was packed with people. It was so crowded that they would be squashed if they stood, let alone seats. Qing Yu was immobilized in the crowded bus. She even complained to Yun Jian, "Oh my God, Sister Jian, I've never taken such a crowded bus in my life." Yun Jian, on the other hand, was pulling the handle of the bus driver as she shielded Xiao Yunzhu with one hand. It was Ce's first time taking the bus, and it was also his first time taking such a crowded bus. In spite of it, he kept one hand shielding Yun Jian as he stood behind Yun Jian to watch over Yun Jian and Xiao Yunzhu. They looked like newlyweds bringing their children out for a vacation. A middle-aged woman in her 40s could not take it anymore. She gave up her seat and told Yun Jian, "Young lady, I'll let you have my seat. It's not easy for a young lady like you to take care of a child." It was obvious that the woman saw Yun Jian, Ce, and Xiao Yunzhu as a family. Chapter 3:16. Thank you. Ce was delighted to hear the woman's misunderstanding. Before Yun Jian could speak, He took over for her and pulled Yun Jian to the seat the woman had vacated, letting Yun Jian carry Xiao Yunju. Si Yi's heartwarming gesture made the woman exclaim, "Ah, it's so good to be young." Yun Jian's cheeks flushed, but she accepted the woman's kindness without explaining anything. She thought that she could squeeze in with the crowd, but Xiao Yunju was small and it was difficult for him to stand in the crowded bus. If he was not careful, he might bump into something. Therefore, Yun Jian accepted the woman's kindness and thanked her. Xiao Yunju was being carried in Yun Jian's arms obediently. He blinked his large eyes, his long eyelashes fluttering. His thin and frail body did not look like an 8-year-old child. Xiao Yunju looked more childish and was much shorter than his peers. It was probably because this body had not been well nourished in the past that he looked like he was 4 or 5 years old at most. Yun Jian was dressed more maturely than usual today, which was a stark contrast to her usual 15 or 16-year-old face. That was why the woman had misunderstood that Yun Jian was Yun Jian's child. After all, there were girls who became mothers at such a young age. It was fortunate that Qingshan City was not far from Longmen City. Qingyu, Chen Sini, and Ce, who did not have seats, only stood for about 45 minutes before they reached the final stop. When they reached the final stop, they took the second bus and arrived at the World Trade Center, which was also the entrance of the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center located in Qingshan City had a daily turnover of $10 million. This undoubtedly made the World Trade Center the most famous shopping mall in the area. Yun Jian got off the second bus and walked in front holding Xiao Yunju's hand. Ce followed beside her. Qingyu and Chen Sini held hands as they were dazed by the dazzling array of merchandise. They had no idea where they had run off to. Qingyu had been through a lot, but she still had the innocent heart of a young girl. Moreover, she was with her new friend, Chen Sini. Both of them looked around and walked away quickly. Before Qingyu and Chen Sini walked away, however, they set a meeting place with Yun Jian. Yun Jian then grabbed Xiao Yunju's hand and went shopping on the men's wear street. The entire street was filled with men's wear, and the children's wear that was suitable for Xiao Yunju was on this street as well. Yun Jian grabbed Xiao Yunju's hand and was about to step into a store that sold children's wear with Ce when a surprised voice came from the side. "It's you." The surprised male voice made Yun Jian's eyelids twitch. It was then that Yun Jian recognized the owner of the ecstatic voice. Yun Jian frowned slightly when she saw the person but did not pay attention to him right away. The person thought that Yun Jian did not remember him. He was a little disappointed but also surprised. "Don't you remember me? I'm Chen Yan. We met last time at Weiwu Mountain." Of course, it was not that Yun Jian did not remember him, but she did not want to bother with him. She didn't expect to meet someone she had met before here. Yun Jian replied faintly. Ce stood aside and looked at the man who had appeared out of nowhere. A glint flashed across his eagle-like eyes. Chen Yan did not expect to meet the girl he had been thinking about last time here. He did not even notice Ce, who was standing beside Yun Jian, and introduced himself in a friendlier manner to Yun Jian. Chapter 317. Yun Jian didn't answer him. Even though Yun Jian didn't answer, Chen Yan wasn't disheartened. When he first saw Yun Jian at Weiwu Mountain, Chen Yan felt that his spring had arrived. Yun Jian's graceful figure and her beautiful and delicate face had always been deeply imprinted in Chen Yan's heart. It felt as if a small sapling had suddenly sprouted when it met the sun. Chen Yan had a few girlfriends before, so he quickly realized that he had fallen in love with Yun Jian at first sight. However, he didn't expect to meet her here after they parted that day. This made Chen Yan feel that they were definitely fated to meet. He decided that he would definitely woo her. Chen Yan suddenly stretched out his hand to grab Yun Jian's small hand as he muttered, "It's fate that brought us together. I'm not a bad person. It means that we are fated to meet each other. Let's go, I'll show you around." However, before Chen Yan's hand could even touch a strand of Yun Jian's hair, Yun Jian was pulled into Ce's embrace. Ce frowned. If that gaze could kill, Chen Yan would have died 1,000,000 times over. "Don't touch my woman." Ce immediately declared his sovereignty. Yun Jian was pulled into his embrace. She only felt that she was covered by a warm chest and her hand was holding onto the confused Xiao Yunju. "What? Your woman?" Chen Yan didn't notice Ce at first, but now, even if he was blind, he should have sensed Ce's presence. Ce was about half a head taller than Chen Yan, so Chen Yan had to look up to meet Siyi's eyes. When Chen Yan heard Siyi say that Yun Jian was his woman, his eyelids twitched and he looked disappointed. Sister, what did brother Siyi mean when he said that you're his woman? Does that mean that sister will be able to accompany brother Siyi forever? Then Xiao Zhu also wants big sister to become Xiao Zhu's woman, okay? Xiao Yunzhu looked at them talking. He rubbed his head as if he was thinking for a long time before saying these words. Cough. Yun Jian was almost frightened by Xiao Yunzhu's innocent words. She broke free from Siyi's embrace and squatted down to rub Xiao Yunzhu's head. Finally, she stood up and slapped Siyi's hand. Don't talk nonsense. With Yun Jian's pat, Siyi felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He smiled slightly and reached out to grab Yun Jian's slender hands, interlocking their fingers. When Chen Yan saw Siyi holding Yun Jian's hand, his expression turned slightly ugly. However, when he thought about how Yun Jian had said to Siyi, "Don't talk nonsense," his disappointed expression immediately recovered. It seemed like this guy's feelings for Yun Jian were one-sided, but Yun Jian didn't like him. That must be it. Chen Yan thought to himself. Although this guy was handsome and had good features, he admitted that he couldn't compare to him. But what if they were to compete in strength? Could this guy compare to him, who was the vice president of the school's taekwondo club and had won countless championships in various taekwondo, wushu, sanda, and other activities? So what if he was good-looking? He was still a gigolo. How could he be as manly as him? When he thought of this, Chen Yan started scolding Siyi. Didn't you realize that she doesn't like you? You should know your place. If you're a man, you shouldn't touch a girl like this. As Chen Yan spoke, he reached out to pat Siyi's hand that was holding Yun Jian's hand. In Chen Yan's opinion, Siyi was at most a gigolo. So what if he was handsome? Chapter 318. Shen Yan thought about it and decided to do it. He reached out his hand and wanted to slap Siyi's hand away from Yun Jian's. He wanted to use this opportunity to throw Siyi to the ground using taekwondo moves. If he presented himself in such a cool manner in front of Yun Jian, she would definitely think that he was especially manly. Just as Shen Yan was about to grab Siyi smugly and throw him to the ground in front of all the passers-by, Siyi, a fair and slender hand with a black pocket watch on the wrist, seemed to know what he was going to do in the next second. That well-defined hand grabbed Shen Yan's elbow a few steps faster than him. Siyi reached out and grabbed Shen Yan's elbow. His other hand that was holding Yun Jian's hand didn't move. When his other hand touched Shen Yan's hand, he twisted Shen Yan's elbow joint. Kacha, kacha, kacha. The sound of bones breaking could be heard one after another. In the next second, Shen Yan's howl resounded through the sky. Oh! Below Shen Yan's elbow, all the bones in his hand were dislocated by Siyi. The heart-wrenching pain spread through Shen Yan's elbow. His wailing and howling attracted the attention of passers-by. Apart from the intense pain from his elbow, Shen Yan was also suffering from immense fear in his heart. She had thought that Siyi was a pretty boy, a useless piece of trash with a handsome face but no ability. However, when Siyi attacked just now, his speed was so fast that he couldn't even see it with his naked eye. Was that even a human speed? Shen Yan swore that even the head coach of the International Taekwondo Club, whom he had the honor of meeting, wasn't as good as Siyi. This was the first time Shen Yan had experienced the feeling of living a life worse than death. At this moment, Siyi had already retracted his hand. One of his hands was still holding on to Yun Jian, while the other hand that had touched Shen Yan took out a piece of tissue from his pocket. He wiped the hand that had touched Shen Yan with the tissue, then threw the tissue into the air. The tissue flew in an arc in the air for a while before it was thrown accurately into a circular trash can more than 10 meters away from them. The surrounding people who saw this opened their mouths wide and stared dumbfoundedly at the tall figure. A handsome man who was 185 meters tall with short black hair and dressed in simple black stood in the middle. His big palm was still holding the small hand of a young girl. He looked at Chen Yan, whose elbow had been dislocated, wantonly and spat out a domineering and elegant word between his thin lips. Get lost. Some people were born with the air of a king. Siyi was undoubtedly one of them, and he was one of the best among them. Siyi was now fuming with anger. How could a piece of trash like him taint his woman? Yun Jian pursed her lips and covered Xiao Yunju's eyes to prevent him from seeing this scene. She personally didn't like Shen Yan very much. Hence, she didn't intend to pay any attention to him. Shen Yan thought that she and Ce didn't know what he was doing, but how could she and Ce not be willing to come out? Let's go. Yun Jian turned to Ce and said. However, Ce's face was still gloomy. He grabbed Yun Jian's hand and left. At the same time, he pulled Yun Jian to a secluded corner where Xiao Yunju stood in front of Yun Jian. Ce leaned over Yun Jian. He pressed Yun Jian against the wall and said with a trace of anger, "You can only be mine." Chapter 319. Yun Jian's heart raced. She felt like her heart was pounding wildly in her chest. She did not understand why Ce was suddenly angry, but she covered Xiao Yunju's eyes with one hand and held Ce's head with the other, responding to his kiss for the first time. Everything else aside, she had feelings for Ce. The fluttering of her maiden's heart told her that she had feelings for him that were different from others. Both of them kissed until they were almost out of breath before Ce let go of Yun Jian. Xiao Yunju's eyes were covered throughout the entire process. Xiao Yunju, however, felt the odd atmosphere as well. He blinked his big eyes and looked up to ask Yun Jian, "Jejia, why did you cover Xiao Zhu's eyes? Are you and Ce going to play hide-and-seek with Xiao Zhu?" Children's innocence was the most interesting but also the most ignorant. Yun Jian rubbed Xiao Yunju's head and turned to glare at Ce with a hint of complaint. "Let's go. Jejia will buy you new clothes." Yun Jian held Xiao Yunju's hand and walked ahead first. Ce had both hands in his pockets. Watching Yun Jian walk ahead, he raised a handsome brow and followed her. By the time Yun Jian bought a few new warm clothes for Xiao Yunju, Qing Yu and Chen Sini had already bought a bunch of things and were waiting for Yun Jian, Ce, and Xiao Yunju at the agreed spot. They had been shopping for the entire morning and had lunch near the World Trade Center before Yun Jian and the rest went home. The public transport from Qingshan City back to Longmen City was not as crowded as the public transport from Longmen City to Qingshan City. It was probably due to Qingshan City's outstanding transportation and trade. In addition, as the provincial capital of Zhe Province, Qingshan City's economic conditions were at the forefront of country Z. Therefore, there were more people going to Qingshan City. As for the bus back to Longmen City, it was enough for one person to take 2 seats. After the previous incident, Yun Jian had gradually taken Ce to heart. She also understood her own feelings. Her feelings for Ce were different from the feelings she had for Qin Yiru and her brother, Yun Yi. On the weekend night, Yun Jian carried her school bag and went to school as usual. But before she could walk out of the house, she was blocked by a tall figure. Ce had his hands in his pockets. One of his legs was slightly curled up as he leaned against the wall, waiting for her. "I'm going away for a while. If you need my help in the Kosha mercenaries, you can contact Xueqi any time." Ce went up to rub Yun Jian's head when he saw her walking over. As he spoke, his eyes stared straight at her. The indulgence in his words was not concealed at all. Be careful," Yun Jian could not help reminding him. Ce was stunned. The corners of his handsome lips curled into a handsome smile. She was concerned about him. Carrying her school bag, Yun Jian passed by a fork in the corner after she came out of her house. It was a secluded alley. At this moment, her eyes suddenly flickered. Not long after, a group of more than 10 people came from all directions and surrounded Yun Jian. This group of people were all dressed in black, which made people involuntarily think of gangsters. A coquettishly dressed woman walked over from behind Yun Jian while leaning against a plump man. Yun Jian's eyes flickered as she took a good look at the woman's face. The woman who had changed her appearance was none other than Chen Yubing, who had tried to harm her brother, Yun Yi, some time ago. Chen Yubing looked completely different now. She had heavy makeup on her face as she snuggled in the man's arms who was in his 40s and old enough to be her father. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.